Thanks for clicking on this video or listening to this podcast. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The Suit Up Show and hit the notification button for new videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And for more information, visit www.thesuitupshow.com.
Hello, people of the multiverse. I am one of your hosts, James, aka Quantum Cosplay.
And I'm Tim, aka UK Grayson. And welcome back to styling your black hair with brown eyes. Sorry, I had to get that one out.
I was like, he's gone off pace. He's gone off pace.
Because as I was sitting here, as I've come to, I was like, if they had to describe us to a police lineup, it's like we've got essentially the same fucking like bland features. Not bland, but do you know what I mean? It's all, we had dark hair and brown eyes.
Bland.
That's what I realised. Go, we had dark hair and brown eyes. I'm like, fucking. It's like,
do you know what?
We've just done different shit.
Hello, people of the multiverse. I'm one of your hosts, James, aka Quantum Cosplay.
And I'm Tim, aka UK Grayson. And welcome back to Suit Up the Cosplay Show.
Yes, welcome back. Exactly. The rumours of the death of this podcast have been greatly exaggerated. And the fact that no one asked for it, doesn't matter. We are back. And it's time to get back to what this podcast was all about, which was the guests. And with us today is an absolutely incredible cosplayer. He is the Junker, Witcher, and many people. Some say that there's one of him. Some say that there's two of him. Some people have even said there's three of him.
Fuck me.
But there are actually multiple of him, and that is because we are joined by Kiefer AKA Multiplejacks. Were you like, what the fuck's he, one of you?
Yeah, one of two.
I'm sure there's only one.
Thank you so much for doing this.
That's all right.
We know it's an absolute ball ache coming along, dragging your costumes, but yeah, let's just quickly say a quick bit about the fact that it's great to have guests back on the show, and that's what we've been trying to get this back on the road for a while now.
Yeah.
Obviously, last year, manic for both of us. We knew we weren't going to be able to get it done. And we said 2025, it's coming back regardless. So let's get back to it. And more importantly, guests back on the show. That's what this show was always about, and it petered off, COVID, all that crap. So yeah, it's really good to have someone back. It's really good to have the mannequins back, and the mannequins with things on them and on display.
Yeah, I didn't actually want to be here. They're like, listen, we need to get this going.
The word is press gang.
It's like that. It's like that reel where it's like, this is my girlfriend, and then if you see the Star Wars thing, and it cuts, and it's like she's got a gun to her head. And then this is my girlfriend, and then it's like, release the woman, and it just like goes on. And there's hundreds of them.
Yeah, this is actually being filmed in my house. They woke me up about 4 hours ago and were like, listen, we need a favour. I was like, they're paying me.
It's like barrage the door. You've won a prize. Yeah, but we're
a non-refundable prize.
Exactly. Bag over the head and in the boot. Right. So, yeah, like we were just joking about. We were like, are we going to remember how to do this? It's been a while, but literally, it's pretty easy because you're here with us, so it's all on you, mate. I'm afraid.
Cool. Well, we've done 20 takes for this intro already.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had 4 of these.
Speaking of which, cheers, man. Then cheers.
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 Ching,
Cheers.
ching, ching.
No, so yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Tim, but like I always remember that we used to open with solely being about the fact that us cosplayers, we're all nerds, and there's always something that really, like, some big thing in when we were younger that sort of like set off our journey into cosplay. It's different for everyone. There's like so many different things, but like Kiefer, what was there something that you were just from a young age? Well, you know, some people like from a young age, some people don't, some people are older in life, but was there something in life where you was like just obsessed with, and then that kind of like took you on a journey towards cosplay? Not necessarily started cosplay, but like towards cosplay. Do you know what I mean?
Well, one that's been quite fun actually, because if we'd have done this a few years ago.
We did.
Which we did.
Yeah, sorry. Just
never.
Quick, yeah, that's another thing. Like, thank you so much for coming back, because the reason we also, with the relaunching the show, we filmed episodes with guests such as Kiefer, and over the whole COVID thing and lockdown and everything, it became a bit tricky. And so those episodes are so old now that we just said to the people that we filmed with, because so much has happened, we was just like, look, you've probably had all things different change in your lives, cosplay, etc. do you want to come back and do it? And thankfully, everyone that has done it has said they would like to. So thank you for coming back again.
That's all right. Hopefully, you all get to see this one. But,
were you just like?
if not, let me know.
Were you just like, oh my god, they're never gonna? Was it that bad?
I mean, it was.
It was pretty self-explanatory.
It was a weird one actually, because we did that, and I remember not too long after, I think I messaged Tim at some point because Tim was saying about uploading that one, and it's a weird. I thought about how I'd asked, and I didn't. There's a few different sides to it, so it was like I remember saying to Tim that, is there any chance we could kind of reshoot and not air that one? And that is something I would never usually ask. And it's not because I said anything specifically that I was like, oh, I don't like that I talked about that or this or anything. It was more over those years, bearing in mind that was just as soon as COVID had started, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Literally the lockdown, I think.
We were all having that conversation, like, oh, should we do this?
Yeah.
And it was all, like, we was all,
the person who recorded that is a different person who sits here now.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So for myself, I remember it was like, it's not so much, I wouldn't have mind if it was released when it was filmed, because obviously people grow and change as they go on. But I think it was like a couple of years later, I was then like, I'm so much different than what I was at that point, and I'm now so much different than what I was at the point I then thought, let's not air it. That I was kind of like, it's probably gonna not reflect me at all in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the simpler thing is like when you see an old picture of yourself from like, and it's just different stuff. You're like, oh no,
Jesus Christ!
That's it in a really simple form. It's like you say, everyone grows and changes and stuff, and it's not just you, because everyone that we spoke to, that we did those initial episodes with, that didn't air, they were like, oh, can we redo it again? And we've. There's even been a few small episodes we did. Like we did some episodes at cons and stuff, and there was ones that where time had passed and there was big changes in some people's lives specifically, and I just messaged him and said, look, are you happy with this going out or not? And some people were like no, some people were like yes, and I was like cool, it's just because there's nothing worse than sticking stuff on the internet and then you have to look back and be like, oh, I'm not sure we'll all look back on this in like 4 years' time and be like, oh my god.
But at least with the way I say the way how things are now, touch wood, everything's kind of, at least at some kind of normal-ish place. And I know a lot of people are going, what? No, it's not. This is going wrong. That is. It's like, but let's just remember back to what COVID was like when it first like,
from your experience sitting here last time.
So realistic, I remember a lot of that podcast being about the situation of the world at that time. Because as much as we were trying to talk about cons and costuming, we were like, I don't know if cons are ever going to be a thing again. I don't know if cosplay, doing photo shoots outside,
we probably spoke
like
about it at some point.
We did,
that like rings a bell. But
so imagine releasing that podcast now, talking about this and that to do with COVID. We'd all be like, no shit about COVID.
No, not anymore.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's I think for me it's nice to get to redo this, and it's not, as I said, it's not about trying to I didn't like what I said then, or I want to come across as a different person. It's more just a case of it was so time specific, that one, that I think doing it again now, or
it's like a weird moment in time to have done it anyway. But like you say, it's like if you film something, you put it online immediately. There's nothing wrong with it, because it's that, and then you grow with that. It's like your Instagram posts or anything or whatever.
I'm not going to delete everything beyond that point. But that wasn't me. I've only existed from the years between 2023 and now. I'm 2 years of age, and I've been
But no, so we massively appreciate it, and to anyone else that's going to come back and do it, like, which they have all said yes to. It's hugely appreciated. But
what first got you into cosplay?
The three of us sit down and talk. It's going to be just nothing but a giant tangent.
Well, that's been a good thing as well. Before I will actually answer that question before this podcast ends, but it's I think our chemistry and stuff has kind of gotten way better.
Well, none of us are wearing pants, so
no. That's mandatory for all future guests.
We've only put the top on because we thought, this isn't going to get viewed.
And I realised what I just did there was how bad I am at this. I spiked the monitor, not any of the cameras. I look straight at the monitor, and that's got fuck all to do with it.
No. Unless I now take that and just snip it, zoom in at the moment, because that's grainy as fuck. That's the
but I mean, it's like to say directly to a camera, but instead just looked off camera.
Do you use a VPN?
It's like the angle, like when you go, have you been missold PPI? And they will be. Yeah, sorry. This will get done. Yeah. What got you into cosplay?
Put your pants back on. That's what got you into cosplay.
It was. It's an odd one. So I only recently kind of realised what. Not a lot of people I always hear say like, "Oh, what sparked my interest?" It wasn't like a thing of, "Oh, I'm going to go do that." So where I first actually started doing it was. As most people, I think I was like 22, something like that. And I was very unsure on what I was doing with myself, what I wanted to be, what I was good at and stuff. One thing I've always been good at and enjoyed doing was impressions and performing. So one of my favourite characters of all time is Captain Jack Sparrow. So I was just like, I want to be a Captain Jack Sparrow impersonator. And I didn't know Comic-Cons were a thing really or anything like that. That's all I wanted to do.
Am I right in saying that that's where your handle comes from, isn't it?
Yes. So there is any music nerds from the film and gaming world and stuff. Hans Zimmer that did the music for obviously the second and third Pirates of the Caribbean and the fourth one. He in the third one there's the bit where Jack is in the Davy Jones locker.
Yeah, and there's like
when he's on the ship, the music for that point is called Multiple Jacks.
Oh, that's actually the track name.
Yeah, and my whole point in that was, I was like, right, if I'm going to be a Jack Sparrow impersonator, the whole point of this is that I've got to go into this knowing, and just trying to humble myself and also not to put too much pressure on I've always struggled with trying to be a perfectionist, trying to be the best at something or this and that, and always never being the best, because obviously someone else is always going to be better or this or that or whatever. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm never going to be the number one Jack Sparrow because there already is one. It's Johnny Depp. And then everyone else, there's going to be people that look more like him. There's going to be people that have got more money for the better costumes, people that enjoy being in more, get the opportunities, this and that. So I thought, if I call myself, rather than Jack Sparrow #1 UK or something like that. I know you mean. So I was like, rather than putting that pressure on myself, because then that way, if I ever wanted to move on from that character or anything like that down the line,
loads of people have had that in the
cosplay. You see, they always change their name to this one character, and it's like, don't limit yourselves. If I'm to ever give any advice, don't do what he's doing. No. Just kind of don't. If it puts any pressure on yourself, don't limit yourself in that way.
No.
At least for myself, I know that's something I would be prone to, so I didn't want to.
Or make the name vague enough that people just think that's your name.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know
I get called Jack all the time now.
Well, we've known each other for all three of us have known each other for ages. Since we first started cosplaying, we pretty much met you straight away, because it was back in like 2017, I think, 2016, that Tim and I cosplayed together, because you did it a bit before me. And yeah, I remember... even after I had learned your name was Kiefer, I associated Jack with your name. I don't know. I still do it to this day with so many cosplayers, because their name will have some sort of thing in it. And I go that, and I'm like, no, that's not their name. Their name is... And it's so confusing.
There was still is, I'm not sure if he still does it now. He might have done something else. But there was a guy called Terry Chango whose name is Jack. And it was like, where does Terry come from? It's like, it's Cherry Tango. And I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to.
Terry.
Your name's Terry.
But I was thinking about it the other day. Actually, it's so weird that the cosplay community. It's so fucking nerdy when you think about we'll name ourselves. Yeah, it's such a weird. Isn't it weird? Like it's so, I'm like.
What I love though is that, to be fair. There's some people that have come out with some names and you're like, what? And this and that. I haven't come across any. Like, I've kind of just took so many of them for red. Like, yeah, that's what they're called, that's it. But when I think of things like what your Xbox gamer tag was when you first made it, or when like you look at your first email address and stuff, and things like that, and you think, what a dickhead.
Yeah, I know.
There's so many of those, but luckily I don't think there's that many of them within the cosplay. People will get bored of theirs, or they want to rebrand them, change them, but I don't think, or at least I've not met anyone where you think, what a wanker. Like, no one has called themselves...
It's racist Tom.
No one has called themselves something like fucking, I don't know, Master Chief 69 XTC something. It's like, you know, no one.
I'm sure there's some
definitely is, and if there isn't, someone please grab that before anyone else does.
But it is. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, it's so weird, and it's because it's Instagram, isn't it? It has to be like social media. It's like then you had to make a handle to make an account to make it all cosplay related, and because before that it just would have been people that were cosplayers that gave themselves a cosplay name would have been just like hardcore people back in the day that went to cons and like went to like had booths and stuff or stalls and that, and then maybe you had like a thing that. But other than that, it made me laugh because I'm like, it's so fucking weird.
Yeah, it's very much like a. Because I remember when I first made an Instagram account, and this is the thing, when it's not when cosplaying first started, but obviously there's a lot of people now. Fuck man, we're old, aren't we?
I was just about to flag that up.
Doing this for a while, and there's people that have been doing it way longer than us. We were seen as like the middle group of starting it, and they were like a generation older than us. But the way it's so integrated in things like, I imagine anyone that started cosplaying within the past 2-3 years. There's probably it's immediate when you start cosplaying. I need to make an Instagram account, a TikTok account. It's about your social media, this and that. When we first started doing it, it was like no one used it.
I remember going to con and I remember going to con and people being like, "Oh yeah, what's your handle?" Or like, "Oh yeah, well you're on Instagram." So I was just like, "Oh, I guess that's something I have to do then."
Yeah. But it was like you would see someone in a dead cool costume at a con. Never see him again. No way of, even if you went up to them, because obviously we do that now. You'll see someone in a cool costume. You're scared to go up to them and say, "Oh, your costume's really cool." Or you don't get the chance to. You're like, "Oh, I wish I had a picture with them."
I remember being so nervous about going up to people when I first went to con, going up to someone and being like, "Oh, it's fine. Your costume's really good."
But that used to be what the after was about. Like the drinks are what was then.
Yeah, because then it was you'd lip board like bit of a drink and then you could go up to someone and be like, "I fucking love your cosplay."
but that's what it was like a whole thing. It was like in the day it was that, but then of the night it was that, and that was how you got to know.
Proper socialising. But that's like with our generation of fucking hell, I hate saying that. It makes me.
But it is our generation.
It's like those cliche phrases. And you're like,
But it is one of those things of like nights out for us. I don't even know what people do for nights out now in terms of what they used to be. And again, I know it's like they do the same thing. I wouldn't know. I haven't done it in so long.
That's the thing. Like, the younger, like our generation was the generation that went out and binge drank and went clubbing. And the younger generations don't do that so much anymore. But you still see it at cons a bit, and it's sort of everywhere. I think it pendulum swings. I think
it's got to. It goes to a point because I think the like people, the younger people of the generation were always like, "Oh, we go out," and it's like, "Oh, we go out more," and then it got to this point. It's like there's no more out you can go. You're going out like till early hours of the morning. So it's like, okay, we don't go out.
Yeah, but it's also like the stupid shit we would do on nights out.
Yeah,
that you would.
No traffic
be able to get. No, exactly. And don't get me wrong.
You were fucking traffic cones?
From both ends.
We were fucking traffic.
But yeah, it was things like that of like, you know, I remember going back to, like, if one of your mates had pulled, you'd go back to that person's apartment because there would now be a house party.
Yeah.
And oh my fucking Christ, I got some stories to tell you. I'm going to have to tell one at some point. I'm going to do it now. Okay, so we were... Me and my brother and a few of my friends, we were all in Chester on a night out, and there was this girl that he knew, and she had this massive stately home, and her
so
parents...
glad you said stately home. So glad.
She was...
Well, they were all there.
Her parents are always away, things like that. They worked lots and things like that. And we went there, and there was loads of weird, cool shit around. Like, they had this dead massive kitchen and everything. They had it was an attic room that had like railings upon railings and chests, like actual fucking ye old chests. And you know, like on Zelda, when you open it and it's glowing, it's like loads of shit in them, costumes, just random stuff. There was one chest we come across, I haven't spoken to him in ages, so hopefully they'll
Can
watch
we put this
anyway.
out?
Yeah,
Too late now.
You'll be all right.
Don't stop him.
My brother will laugh. So
There was a body.
no, but there was loads of bedroom toys
Hey.
of all varieties.
Whole chest.
Fuck yeah!
Wow.
It was mental.
That's impressive.
There's a lot of toys.
And so, me and a couple of my friends, we started to we took loads of them. Like, there were fucking loads. I could say I picked up about 12. My friend picked up about the same amount. And there was shitloads in there. So we started to put them around the house.
No.
Right? She didn't know. She'd gone off to bed or whatever, and we were all still dicking about. And we literally, and we were putting them in plant pots and this and that and whatever. And I remember in the morning, we woke up and me and my friend had slept outside on the sun lounges, and it was so warm. It was one of those summer days where it's 30 odd degrees in the morning. We were so hungover, we were dying, and we're like, oh my fucking Christ. So I went inside to go get a drink. None of the taps were working. There was no water running in the house. I don't know why. I was like, oh my God. So for anything in the fridge, nothing. No milk, nothing, right? So I looked in the freezer, just one bottle of Lucozade. You know when you open the freezer and the mist comes out, the light shines?
Yeah.
Just sat there. One bottle of Lucozade, nothing else in the freezer, no food, just one bottle of Lucozade sat there. I was like, oh my God. I was trying to wait for it to melt a little bit so I could drink it. I was like, oh fuck, come on. Finally got about, when you can see a bit swishing at the bottom. Yeah. The second I started to drink it, it already touched my tongue. She walked in, she goes, don't drink that, it's goose fat. So I was like,
Because of course it is.
yeah.
That's the goose fat freezer, you idiot.
What's a knob? Bottle of Lucozade, freezer, goose fat. What the fuck are you doing? I was like, of course.
That's the goose
So that was horrible.
Yeah, the only one.
Yeah, she said it as if I was the dickhead in the scenario.
The goose
What
fat.
are you doing? And so that was grim. Put that back in the freezer, and then we heard her mum and dad come home, and we're like, oh fuck. So we kind of waited outside because she was like, oh, we're not really supposed to have anyone here.
Yeah.
So okay, and then it was quite quiet, and you could tell the dad was a bit like, okay, people have been back, but
Don't be in the loft, have they?
straight away, while they're chatting, there's a giant plant pot on an island in the middle of the kitchen, and I know full well there are 3 dildos sticking out of this.
Not one, not 2.
But they're all blending in the colour with the I arranged these flowers properly, so the colours of the dildos are matching the array of flowers, so it looked nice.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I'm not a monster.
No, you're not an animal.
And then the second I heard her dad go, when you can hear a muffled noise, it's just, what the fuck? Right, he's found the dildo.
Get the goose fat, we're leaving it.
So we just legged it. So
The goose fat.
exactly. So that was a night out for us.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens anymore. If anyone has ever come across a
Phone
chest
in.
of dildos,
Have you
answers
ever
on
put
a
a dildo
postcard
in?
if you found a chest of dildos. Or if anyone just knows anyone that has one, if that's a thing. But so stuff like that was night out for us.
I think they say I think the majority of the thing that I hear all the time is the younger generation are healthier because they're more obsessed with going to the gym, that sort of stuff, which we've just done anyway as we've gotten older.
Yeah, it's a bit different for us.
We've ruined our bodies and now we're trying to desperately fix them.
We've got to start going to the gym because fuck me, you cannot survive on alcohol.
You cannot survive on goose fat. It's not a staple diet.
Or then it's alcohol drinking isn't so much a thing, but then maybe it's more drugs are more pertinent than alcohol. But who knows?
What was good about that for me? That that hilarious thing. But back to getting you in and us saying we don't really understand the younger generation. I've spoken to people. Their thing to jump them in was Pirates of the Caribbean. And they're they're probably the generation younger than you.
It was a massive deal, that film. That film, it's huge.
Much like you said, you're discovering gaming with this back catalogue of thing. I'm kind of jealous of anybody who gets to go into this. And maybe your jumping in point is probably the MCU because that's very pop culture.
Yeah.
But for me to go right, there's this whole back catalogue of you've got the Batman animated series, you've got the Superman animated series, you've got Pirates of the Caribbean, you've got all this stuff that
You're saying
exists.
someone that come in at this sort of like point, and then you've got this back
if you're
catalogue.
brand new to this,
Yeah.
and you come in and you jump in at this point, and it's like, what do you like about that? There's probably something out there already made, fully in season. That you could go watch.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's just that's the problem though, isn't it? There's so much stuff now that it's quality control. It's
Yes.
like, you know,
because
it's
I think
like
that was a
quantity
big
over quality.
Thing, a
And like
big
you said-
thing for our generation was we were around the time where series had just started as being a thing. So things like Breaking Bad, Dexter, they were like new
cannot
series.
believe we've started the podcast and someone's setting off fucking fireworks.
Of course I could. Of course I
Are
could.
they for us? Is that because we're
See,
from...
I'm from North Wales, so I was just like, this is Essex, that's gunshot. It's normal. It's the
could
fact that
be
these
wrong.
didn't bat an eye. That's all right, innit? This is normal.
You just go, hang on, back.
Sorry. Turf war. Going on for a week. But yeah, so
Sorry, you were saying,
with like certain series, like obviously the Daredevil series and stuff, that was back on when it came out on Netflix and things like that. And we never had that beforehand.
No.
You had to wait for like things like Harry Potter, or there's certain film series that we know of now that I genuinely think, like the Hunger Games. It's the first thing where I read the books first before any of the films, and the films they are good. They are good films. They're done very well. The casting, I will say, is 100% immaculate. If they were to ever redo it, and it should have been in 18, it should be the same cast, though, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But because they made it a 12A or whatever it was, and a 12A back then was a lot less. Like you would not
Yeah,
get
you can do
much.
anything now.
Exactly. 12A is like murder. This sound, not a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they went very light on any of the stuff that is the impactful stuff.
Yeah, I have no point of reference for those films.
But that's
I know what you're saying about
I feel like if that was done as a series, which I think if at that time when they were coming out, if series were a thing, and they knew that was an option, they had the funding for series, they'd have gone, well, yeah, let's do it as that.
Because it was like actors who did TV didn't do film, and actors who did film didn't do TV. And
it was
now,
almost
like,
seen as
everyone does
embarrassing
everything.
if an actor that was in films is now on TV, like, oh, what happened to their career?
Jesus, they've gone. But now because series are so good and so kind of produced, you can go, this person gets a chance to do this character really well. And another thing that I think that's really a shame that you don't get so much of anymore is that the first film, and I consider probably one of the first like superhero films, Blade. This was great. Blade was an 18, and I saw it at the cinema because if you wanted to see 18s, you had to find yourself a dodgy cinema. Luckily, this was Essex. There was a few that would be like 18, and they'd be sure, go in, thanks for the money. But Blade was it was an 18 film about vampires, and I think now you'd get quality control. Oh, we've got to do this to the broadest audience. We've got to make sure this makes its money back. Whereas before it was like this little thing. Can we make this? Yeah, sure, we'll put it out there.
Yeah,
and people loved it. And it worked so well. I couldn't imagine Blade being anything other than an 18.
No, exactly. And it's the same
It's
things like
the first
Spawn
Marvel,
as well.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's the first Marvel.
absolutely the first Marvel.
Yeah.
And Wesley Snipes the entire time wears sunglasses, and it's like maybe now people are like, well, that's stupid or what the hell. But for that world and that kind of that what's the word?
It's unique,
microcosm.
isn't it?
That
Yeah,
microcosm. You're like, he's got a big fucking trench coat on, he's walking around with a sword, and he's got sunglasses on all the time. Fine. But for that world, that makes sense. And
I was going to say, another thing that's quite funny as well back then is that, you know how when the first Judge Dredd film come out, it had Sylvester Stallone in it.
Yeah.
And obviously, back then, it was seen as like a...
It wasn't silly, but it was like...
Well, you know how a lot of it was about, well, Sylvester Stallone's a big actor, we've got to show his face, or he's not going to agree to be in it. Because he's I want to get my profile out there. Yeah. Whereas now it's seen as, if a character takes off their helmet and they're not supposed to, everyone fucking hates them.
Yeah.
Like, we literally... Everybody loved the Dredd film with Carl Urban.
Yeah. Oh, that
because it was like because he kept the helmet on, and we were like, yes, we love Carl Urban. We think he's great. We want to see his face as much as possible because he's cool as shit and he's handsome as fuck. But for this film, no, we all know the assignment that comes with this. Don't do dread unless you're keeping the helmet on. And he did. And it's like, now we love it. Whereas back then, you would get these sorts of things. You always got, even with like the old Spider-Man film with Tobey Maguire and stuff, you know full well you would get to your point where it gets to the third act where the mask gets burnt or broke and they now have to take it off because it's like, you've had your 20 minutes of a mask, now you've got to have the character's face. And it started to happen. Whereas now, I feel it's got to that point where we just want the character accuracy, and they've realised that's worth more than having the actor.
That's funny about because like character accuracy, it's always evolving because you always look back at a previous iteration and you go that you thought was perfect. You go, yeah, they didn't get it right, did they?
No.
Now people look back at like the Nolan trilogy and it's like, yeah, it's fantastic. You go, still not quite right.
There's also things where I'm like, oh shit, they nailed that. That's probably like people think it's a joke. Like me and you had this one, Batman Forever.
Yes.
Batman Forever. Val Kilmer is a very good Bruce.
Yeah.
He's such a good Batman.
Good, honestly.
And he's such a good Batman and Bruce Wayne and the voice he does. And also, I'm not sure if I brought this up on the podcast, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. And I know what you're saying. They go, what? If you look at like his opening monologue, before he like tries to outdo Jim Carrey, his serious opening monologue about fate, you're like, that's fucking Two-Face.
Yeah, there's supposedly like the Schumer cut, isn't there?
Yes,
there's supposedly a cut of that film that
which is darker.
Is like darker and
Kevin Smith's apparently seen it.
Yeah, there's a few people that.
Oh, you know what? I was listening to Kevin Smith talking to. While you were saying that, then I was sitting there thinking, like, I feel like I've had this conversation recently, but I was listening to Kevin Smith on Theo Von's podcast.
Oh yeah,
and he was talking about this exact thing. That's why it makes sense. But yeah, I remember him saying that there's a different cut that's out there and he's trying to see.
I would love to see it
if he can get hold of it.
We are like, there's been many times we've sat down, had a drink and watched Batman Forever. It's a nostalgia thing as well, though, because I think that was the Batman film that I went to the cinema as a kid. Because before that it was Burton and I'd seen them, but I didn't go to the cinema. And after that, Batman and Robin, and you're like, oh no. And then until it rebooted with a Nolan. You said about character accuracy, it's funny because we're always trying, do you know what I mean? It's like Tobey Maguire. I was like, it's amazing, it's incredible. And the time passed, you're like, oh. And then Andrew Garfield, you're like, this is great, but it's not quite. And then with Tom Holland, you're like, it's still good, but it's not exactly. You're always trying to get like that. But then everyone has their own. Yeah. You know, their own like idea of what that character should do, shouldn't do, should look like.
Especially when you age.
You can also, perhaps because Batman's been around for such a long time, you can go into a room full of die-hard Batman fans and all their opinions on who did Batman best will be different.
Yeah. But a lot of the time, I find that, I used to be a hard, like, no, this person's the best or that one's crap or whatever. And as you get older and you've experienced them all, and I don't know if this is for everyone, but genuinely for myself at least, as I've changed or grown in some ways or this and that, I start to realise bits that they were doing that I didn't like. I'm like, oh, they were doing him from that aspect that's more towards this side, but I didn't understand.
Yeah, because as a kid you have no nuance. Fuck me, I'm still finding nuance. Like, so, it's like...
Well, and I had this thing with someone when they said about Tom Hardy not being big enough to play Bane, and I was like, but it's all contextual. Like how I say Batman Forever works in that Gotham. That Gotham with like...
If you'd have put comic book Bane in Nolan's trilogy, everyone would have been like, what the fuck?
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. Or you would have put Ben Affleck's Batman in Schumacher's Gotham.
This is the thing, because I found with the Nolan ones, it was almost like, every time he'd announce who the next villain was going to be. Because a lot of the times you kind of want to... I'd rather not know. I want to be surprised in a film on who the villain is or something. But it was more with him. Each time he was announcing a villain, I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to see how he does a realistic take on that person.
That's very much what Nolan changed cinema with Batman Begins. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it just opened that gateway to like, oh, okay, now we're really taking this stuff seriously. Yeah. And then stuff went too serious for a while because you can go like you were saying earlier about Daredevil, like the Netflix series, that was very grounded. TV shows like Arrow, super grounded. Like, it took us a while to then find our way back to like more fantasy, comic book, and you could even argue it's now gone too far with like your Thor, Love and Thunders, like that sort of stuff. And it's like we know what we can do, shouldn't do. It's like trying to find that balance.
Yeah. Well, I think there is definitely, you can make good superhero films, but you have to go, right, this is the superhero film from this aspect, which is good to the character, and we've got to concentrate on quality. And it doesn't matter if, people don't like it. I'm sure there are people out there who hate the grounded Daredevil. Or who hate, the...
I'd like to see him do more acrobatic stuff. Like, you never see him, like, jumping and swinging. And they're trying to introduce that more, and it's because like you said, everyone's take on stuff is different, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you have to allow a director to do their work, and sometimes it might not be a hit right away, but then it becomes like, oh, this was actually great.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people are now scared to take a risk.
But we're spoiled, aren't we, as well? It's like, so you should be able to let someone have full creative control of saying, do something that's not quite what you wanted, or it's a different version, or an Earth One thing, or like I don't like Robert Pattinson's Batman. The films are great, but that's not my idea of what Batman should be. But now, if I can imagine, like a while ago, I'd have been like, don't like that. Whereas now I'm like, oh, that's cool because it exists and it's a different version of something. Yeah, but, fucking hell.
Well, it's a good thing to have so much content, but I feel like what's missing a lot from these days is
this podcast.
The desire to make something different. Like, I take it back to Blade. I can't remember anything that was like Blade before it came out.
Well, it was the first that was the first of its kind, wasn't it?
But it's so ingrained in me. And I didn't realise, that's my idea of vampires now. Like that in my head, like that's my archetype of vampires. Like I'm sure if someone's archetype of vampires will be Twilight.
Yeah, I was going to say, because obviously this again, it comes to like a generational thing of, when you are shown stuff when you're a kid, which this actually comes like as a full circle as to why I got into cosplaying. I will answer that question.
I was going to say, we've just massively tangented on so much stuff, so we need to get back to it.
This is the thing of like, it's when you're growing up and when you're most impressionable, and what things that, excite you or you find fun and stuff like that. So for example, when you are seeing, if you grow up with, I mean, you guys probably did as well, with like Fox Kids cartoons, when you had them Spider-Man and stuff, the Amazing Spider-Man stuff on there. So if you then got a very realistic, grounded Spider-Man, you'd be like, this isn't the Spider-Man that I know. The Spider-Man I know is the one I grew up with as a kid, which is, he does this, it's very much like this, the bad guys are like this. So if you imagine growing up that your first scene of Batman is the animated series, and you get characters like Poison Ivy and people that are or Clayface, and it's kind of, you don't really ask about their origins. You can find out after you enjoy the characters, but they quite often just kind of go, they're already in it. It's a big clay, man, deal with it. And you go, cool, because you're a kid and you just find it fun. But then imagine if, you're 5 or 6, you've been watching Batman for your 5 or 6 years of life, and someone says, oh, there's a Batman film. You're like, oh, wow. And the Batman film is the Nolan ones. You'd be like, this feels like I'm watching a business drama.
It's a policeman real. With a Batman suit on.
And it's, when you're like, I don't care about politics and all this and this and that, whereas as an older person, you kind of watch and go, I've seen and done all the other stuff as a kid. I've had my Val Kilmer, I've had all the Tim Burton ones and stuff and all the cheesy fun ones. Now I want something a bit different. So, now that those ones are a little bit, not tired, but for yourself, you've been and seen them, to have another campy sort of fun one is like, cool. I've already got them though, and now this is just not probably going to compare to the ones I grew up with, because it's got nostalgia behind it as well. Whereas if you do a completely different take, someone can go, that sort of, as you said with Robert Pattinson's Batman, it's like, you know what, that Batman's not really for me, but I enjoy that it exists because I've still got my catalogue of Batman. Whereas if you'd been promised a Batman and you'd been shown exactly what he's like, and then it's like, do you want him in live action? He's nothing like what you've ever seen before or ever known or liked. You'd be like, well, I feel
that's
like
exactly it, because go on, sorry.
Oh, and I was going to say, and that's a perfect segue to the Witcher because of Netflix.
I was literally just thinking about that. Literally,
I was like, that's a perfect segue.
It's a good segue to get onto the.
Right, because I'll get into an angry tangent on this one for a while.
But first, a game of Gwent.
Let me first get. Right, I'm going to quickly answer the getting into cosplay.
Yes,
I can bring this back around into
do it.
Witcher,
We can get there.
So, for me, growing up as a kid, I was the youngest of 5. So my parents are like, I'm trying to think, most parents are usually like 20 years older than them, roughly, give or take. Mine are like 30, 35 years older than me. My oldest sister is 10 years older than me.
Right.
She was kind of like my second mum growing up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, as I've grown up, it's been like sharing a room with 2 other boys. One's 2 years older than me, and then one's 5 years older than me, and then there's 2 sisters in a different room. And I mean, you've obviously got a child and things like that, and obviously anyone else that's somewhere, obviously anyone else that's watching that might have kids or, you know, brothers and sisters and things, it's like when you're teaching your first child how to, you know, put your coat on, this and that and whatever you want it, so you teach them how to do their shoelaces because you're like, oh, I want them to be able to do it themselves. It got to me and it was like, oh, I've done this 5 fucking times.
Oh, okay.
Let me put your fucking coat on because we need to get out the house. Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. Right,
so by the time it got to me, it was very much like, oh, you're doing it wrong. Let me do it for you. So I was very man-bead, but not in like, oh, we love our little one.
Just get it done.
Just fucking hurry up, will you?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I was always scared of the real world and like getting too involved or doing something wrong because you would get moaned at. So it was easier for me to like escape off to a little fantasy world.
Yeah. I had a similar thing with like, that's what got me. It was like, oh, real life, no. Oh, fancy stuff.
So for me, when I was very little, like I've always grown up on, my mum, funnily enough, was always pretty good with being into like games and stuff. She's never looked at it as like, oh, that's something kids do. She's always been pretty good.
That's cool. That's cool.
And
that is
my
cool.
auntie, who's my mum's sister, she had polio from a very, very, very young age. So she grew up in a wheelchair like her whole life.
Yeah.
But she was like a mega nerd with games and stuff because she was like, if I can't do many of the other stuff, then she was like a fucking internet computer wizard and everything before they were a thing. So with gaming, she was the type of one where if you got stuck on a level in Zelda, and I don't mean like Ocarina of Time, I mean even before like A Link to the Past on the SNES, like how the fuck do you do the so-and-so temple or the whatever, you call Auntie Anne, she will just know.
Yeah, because you couldn't go online and look.
No, there was no internet to do anything.
You had
tutorials, nothing.
You had to hope a magazine came out with a guide.
Oh,
yes,
God,
and again, that was if you then had money to go and get that.
Yeah.
Being the youngest of 5, you weren't offered that option.
Or you got the hand-me-down guide. I've got the guide to do that, and it's this old guide with cheats in the back of it, which you wrote down.
Exactly. So
why is this bit with the Lara Croft stuck together? What's going on?
it's when you find the really strange like at least with Lara Croft it makes sense, but then when you find one that's got like they're not even remotely human or anything, like what is going on here? But anyway, that's
someone really likes Resident Evil.
Nemesis. Makes sense. But so for me, my auntie was very much into like Sonic the Hedgehog, Zelda, Mario. So Sonic for me, I loved. And same with Zelda, same with Mario. Pokemon I got into. My auntie didn't really get into Pokemon that much, but I loved it. And from there, it was like any chance I got in between, because this is also, bearing in mind, we've got a console between us, but I'm having to share it.
Take your turn, yeah.
So when you're the youngest, and especially there's 2 other boys...
You're not getting to stay up late either and play on it, because you're first to bed.
Playing on it. I'm never getting the chance to play on it. So quite often I'm then, if I get to play a game, something I like, and when you're a kid and it proper captures your imagination, anything... you don't get the time to actually play it to experience that world. So you then, if I'm playing on, I don't know, like Banjo-Kazooie I used to play on loads for the Nintendo 64, any cartoony kiddie sort of game like that I loved. So I would then put on my backpack, packet full of loads of stuff, and I would go and play it myself outside, like actually playing outdoors. But it was stuff like that I would go and do all the time. Like I'd be singing the music from certain levels to myself all day, every day. Yeah. So from there, I've grown up with loving all video game music and orchestrated versions of video game music. And then when I got to about the age of 13, 14, my sister and my brother, they were very much into the Final Fantasy games, like Final Fantasy 7 in particular, when that first came out. I was only 7 at the time, so I liked the look of it because they always played it, but it was like, it's a bit older for me. Like, I didn't like anything that wasn't too colourful, anything that seemed a bit drab and depressing. I was like, no.
This is scary.
Exactly. So I was like, no. So I just ran away from it. But fucking hell, Resident Evil, no chance. But for a long time, I kind of avoided stuff like that. And then when I got to about 12, 13, I started to play them. And I loved Final Fantasy 7, 8 and 9, and then 10. Then a couple of the ones in between there I wasn't too big on, but I jumped back in at like 12, 13, 14. And so all the music for them, all the characters, I absolutely loved. I've got loads of the figures and stuff for them. So collecting figures, when I finally had a bit of money to be able to get stuff like that, was my first thing from enjoying these things and getting to actually make
like
them
physical,
real. It was like, I'm in one way or another making it real again.
But it's like a more adult real, like, because you're not because I know exactly what you mean. I had exactly the same thing. I remember, because also you'd have that experience where you'd go to like game shops and they'd have like figurines or statues in there, and there wasn't like a big thing at that time.
No,
America had a much more. You didn't have.
You just get the odd Forbidden Planet.
No.
The only place you could get anything that you could remotely see in Forbidden Planet, like when you see like a mask from a game, like Majora's Mask or something, like the actual mask. If you've seen that in like the game station or game, you're like, Mum! Straight away.
But that's the thing as well. And now with like the thing of like Etsy and stuff, people will make these props and sell them. Because when you were young,
knocking them out, 3D printing them.
You can. The idea of having anything like that was just non-existent. It was just non-existent.
And the idea of even making it yourself, like using foam or card or anything, it was like, that's not a thing. So you would never have it. So getting figures and stuff was the closest I could get, and I enjoyed it. And then there were certain games, obviously Final Fantasy 7, I had loads of the figures for it, and I've got one of Squall from 8 and a few others, Tidus and things, stuff from number 10. And then it got to Gears of War was the first adult game that I genuinely really enjoyed.
Because you've always been massive into gaming. Is very much from knowing you. Gaming is very one of your big things.
I love films. Obviously, growing up on films, series I love as well. But I would say my love for all of this mainly has stemmed from
whatever you call it, whether people call it pop culture, whatever it, your thing.
I will talk about films and stories and things like that forever. But I will say the thing that I, and still now, spend the most of my time doing is playing on games. Like I love them. I always have. And I think it's because when we were younger, the risks and the weirdness you could get and the creativity out of a game, as opposed to what you could get in a film, there was so much more. Like a film, because you were reliant on special effects and things like that, and obviously they couldn't do it as much in the 90s and things, stuff like that. Obviously,
animation wasn't quite there yet.
No, and like, don't be wrong, I know it's a case of, well, that's silly, because you had things like Star Wars, Alien and stuff like that. Yes, but what you can get out of Star Wars is like, Chewbacca is a furry man-looking creature still, and I know there's obviously other things and stuff like that, and it's like, of course, but you were never going to get a Sonic the Hedgehog film back then where Sonic is not a human. And it's things like that where at best you would get like the Mario Brothers film with Bob Hoskins and stuff in it, and Bowser's a man. It's like, what is this? It's just bizarre. So, but even still, you loved it as a kid because you were like, it's almost real. Oh my god!
Power Rangers, people just in suits.
Exactly. And stuff like that I absolutely adored. And then it got to the point where I started to get some of the Gears figures, and then the first thing I seen that was like the closest thing to that, like I didn't know Gears was actually what it was. I was very much into my anime and stuff after getting into Final Fantasy. And there was a lad that I knew in high school, and he told me about Gears of War, but he thought, similar to me, that it was like similar to like Gundam and stuff. It was going to be like an anime like mech suit thing. The name Gears of War sounds like, oh wow, cool. And then I remember just going to buy it because we'd been talking about it for ages. I had seen nothing to do with it, heard nothing. I was just like, oh yeah, that sounds like a cool thing.
Because also companies didn't like used to heavily. It was not like now you get trailers online. You're flooded with content. You weren't watching trailers for Gears of like it's just it didn't exist.
It would.
You'd see it on the front of magazines, maybe, and like that sort of stuff.
But now you get game trailers on TV. That was never a thing, ever. They weren't taken that seriously. Games, it was seen as they were like how we were saying before about how films were seen as the big thing, but a series was like it's if you didn't have the budget or the cleverness to make a film, you made a series. So you're seen as a second class. It's almost like a version of
lower budget, less money.
And that's what a game was. It was like, oh, you just make games. The story's not going to be real or good or this or that. Then. And then obviously you started to get higher quality ones when it got to things like the 360 and PS2 and whatnot and things like that. And then Gears, I remember I had to get my brother to buy it for me, because I wasn't old enough. I was like 16, you had to show your ID. And I got the limited edition tin, and I was reading through the book, and I was like, what the fuck? Looking at all the stuff, and then my brother was like, what the hell, you've got a chainsaw on your gun? I was like, what? It blew my mind, straight away. So I remember thinking, that's amazing. And I was playing through it, and I was like, this is horrible, but usually I would be scared of this sort of game, like Resident Evil or something, because it's everything that was more grown up like that, where it's bloody or something, it's things are chasing after you. Whereas Gears was the first one where it's like you've got half a fight, you're the one with the chainsaw. It's scary because they're there, but you're like, but I've got the means to kill them.
But I'm armed.
Exactly.
I'm armed.
I'm well armed. So it was like, playing it in that way was like, oh, okay, this makes me feel a bit safer about playing this.
And there's also the thing that just as you age anyway, you slowly dip your toe slowly into that more like you're like, oh, it's a bit more adult, more adult.
And I think Final Fantasy VII was a good bridge for me with that, because Final Fantasy VII is, and if anyone hasn't ever played the original, it's probably a hard one to ever get into now because the graphics and things, stuff like that.
You are literally because I always used to I used to look at it and like it and love the idea of it, and then I play bits of it and be like, it never,
but
never really.
It's like now it's almost like playing a book, because a lot of it is so much, obviously it's reading. It's like Pokemon. It's exactly the same as Pokemon, but imagine with more in-depth characters and there's a big story going on, but the world and everything else in it, it's like. Number 7 was so clever and way ahead of its time. Like the story and the lore behind it is about as big as anything like Star Wars. It's got so much in there, and it just come out in 1997. It's just another game. And that was it. So when I started to play it and really get into it, I was like, oh my God, there's so much you can learn while you're doing it.
I think you and I had the same experience with Metal Gear Solid. Because that was a game, I was just like, what the...
Like, you know how it's anime themed, but the anime stuff that we were used to at the time was more cartoony.
I wouldn't... it's the idea of anime... It's the idea of that... What you'd now just be like would just be like fantasy. But at the time it was just there's things taken from anime, but it didn't look like anime. And it was because it was games as well. It didn't have like the ability to look like what traditional anime is.
You almost wouldn't notice, like when you're playing the games. I remember not even realizing when I was playing Final Fantasy VII, because there's no artwork really other than like your little square picture of your characters, and in Metal Gear Solid there's not really much artwork.
No, aside from that,
while you're playing for
drawings anyway.
Because anime wasn't like mainstream back then, you were thinking anime was like you know how in Sailor Moon, like their eyes are very big and stuff like that. This is very
well over the top,
very cartoony anime. That's what anime was. There was no in between. As far as we were concerned.
So
as far as you would never have assumed Metal Gear Solid is something like that. You'd have thought, no, this is like adult drawings and stuff. That's a different thing. And then when you start seeing the artwork and things, you're like, of course it is. It's exactly what this is. And then you start realizing, oh, I didn't know anime was capable of like, you know, like how Shinra in Final Fantasy is very like, it's all tech based and industrial, and obviously Metal Gear Solid is all like it's obviously got the Metal Gears in it, but it's the factories where they're made and the science labs and everything, all the science stuff that comes with it. It's like, oh, I didn't think anime was capable of all of this.
I know what you mean.
So it kind of gives that older headed side to it, and I think that was a good bridge for me. And then from that point onwards, starting to enjoy those sorts of games and things. I remember when Gears 2 come out, and when I went to pick up the limited edition version of that, they had the Gold Lancer, like the full size one, and I was like,
that's the era when they started making like with
real
you
things.
Go in and it was like the Batarang from like Arkham.
Yeah.
So you're like, what in God's name?
And this is the thing for me now.
Mum!
Growing up from that era now, every time I go in anywhere, or you know when you're walking past stalls at a Comic-Con and you see the ones that have got those things, when it's the proper item or it's the one they have. I seen a keyring the other day that is the Dragon Ball scanner that Bulma has. It's got the green screen on it, and you press the thing and they light up. I was like, even if I don't need it or anything, in my head I'm like, like sweating. You think, I want that though, because it's the real thing. It's the thing.
Yeah, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're like,
fuck me.
I shouldn't buy it. I shouldn't buy it.
So bad with shit like that.
If someone to open the door in your house, you're just wearing the Dragon Ball D.
Dragon Ball D.
Higher level.
Just like over 9,000, and like you have to pay an electric bill, and you're like, oh, how cool.
That's the thing. If anyone turns up and they're not as big of a challenge, it's like, we're here. You owe like $8,000 for council tax or something. You're like, you have a meager power. Slam the door. So you're not worth my time.
The bins need taking out, for Christ's sake. Come on.
but that I think perhaps those are the telltale signs of becoming a cosplayer. Of like, I just want to have this because I love this world so much. Because I don't know, perhaps because we couldn't buy it when we were young, or we couldn't have it and now you can go to con and what I mean, you could even search on the internet for these things.
And not only that, you can.
It wasn't available as well.
You can make it yourself.
That's the problem. Is we've all our generation has all grown up where we had this stuff, we've loved it, and then as we've aged, they've just started being able to make more and more like physical, like you were saying, all that sort of stuff, and you're like, I want it. I want it. I'm going to have it. And that definitely does, like you were saying, ties into cosplay, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And so many things. I think for me, like, so as I was saying with the whole Jack Sparrow impersonating thing, that was something I was looking at as more like a job, but I loved the character.
Yeah.
And acting and performing and stuff as him. And then the first thing I did have the Gold Lancer and stuff at that time and a couple of other bits and pieces, but it was like, but I'm never going to have Gear's armour though, am I? I'm never going to be as big as them, I'm not going to be able to do that, this and that and whatever. So I kind of just thought, having the props is nice, but I also want
bouncing from my walls and couch is good enough.
Literally. But trying to get stuff that kind of worked in the same... like I could represent it properly was a hard one. And the next thing I come across, I think it was 2015 when the Mad Max Fury Road film come out.
Right, yeah.
And that was
the other, because you got 2 different costumes with you here today, and when you came the first time
I had Mad Max because it was the first one I made. Like I had,
because you were saying about, you was like, it'd be a cool one to bring, and I wanted to bring it, but you couldn't bring it today because
I couldn't find a lot of the bits and pieces. They weren't all where
it was one that you brought because you were like, it was your first.
Yes, and I will say probably it's how, I don't know. It is bullshit, but I've never had an issue with it. Like nothing's ever broke on it.
Well, that's real good.
Exactly how I got it.
Because I love the whole Mad Max ethos. I remember seeing that and being like, that's such a good cosplay. But I also can remember, which is a great thing about con, is we were in the Fox, and this is when the Fox was still fun. This woman asked you who you were, and you was like, oh, Mad Max, and she said, I would have never have got that.
So all 3 of us were standing out in like the smoking area outside, and we were having the best time ever. And this girl come over and she was chatting to us, and she was like, "Oh, and who have you come as?" And I was like, "Oh, Mad Max." She's like, "I never would have got that." Bear in mind, I've literally got the metal thing on my face. I've got the full suit, which fair enough, she might not have seen it, but the way she said it was as if like, I've seen the film. What you're wearing, I wouldn't have guessed that. And we were all just like blank. And I just looked at her and went, "Oh, well, fuck me."
No, you went, cheers. But that's funny because stuff like that will happen. And especially if you're cosplaying and you've done a good job, if that happens, it's actually funny.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. So many.
Do you remember me?
Oh, it's
Nathan Drake,
the guy from Jurassic Park,
so
and
good.
the dude from
went,
The Mummy.
You went, oh, are you the dude from The Mummy? Oh no, I know who you are. You're like Chris Pratt from Jurassic Park.
You're like first attempt, second attempt.
It just wasn't. It wasn't going in, and Keith was going, yeah.
Throughout the whole day, they were like, "Oh, are you?" And I was like, "Chris Pratt."
yeah. Oh, it was so funny.
Yeah, but you kind of. It still happens today because not everyone at Comic-Cons are as knowledgeable as everyone on everything.
No,
and everyone's got their own. Some people are just there. Like, oh,
do you remember the mum that shouted at you? She was like, "There's Batman," and then she went, and this is when James is in his Buster armor suit, and I think
it was Iron Man, wasn't it? I think was she like, "Is that Iron Man?"
No, there's Lego Batman.
Oh yeah. Which to be fair, did fucking pretty much look like Lego Batman the first time I wore it. The first time I wore it, it was very...
But the one you were wearing at that time looked like it stepped out the film, which is like, and there's Lego Batman, and I was like, that's incredible.
Alfred.
But that is something that
Echo Batman,
is funny, especially if you do this and go and have fun. Stuff like that is hilarious. It is hilarious.
Tim and I were talking about this so much recently. Do you know what? Quick sidebar, actually. One of the reasons we wanted to, well, me personally anyway, that I was saying that we need to do the podcast and we need to get it back again and do it as we originally intended with guests and people coming on and talking to them about cosplay was because I was just like, there's just so much negative shit online. Every time I go on Instagram, it's even people being negative about cosplay. I don't talk about like bad things happening in cosplay community, like bad things happen in all different types of communities. I'm not talking about that specific thing. I'm just talking about people fucking moaning about the state of, like, it's what you make it. So if you don't like it at the moment, try and either don't do it or don't. But
what you don't. It's a hobby. It's just ultimately a hobby.
Yeah, if you're not having fun, change what you're doing. If you're going to cons and going, it's not the same as it used to be. No, it's not the same as it used to be. The same way it wouldn't be the same if you went back to school and you were an adult.
Yeah.
It's because we've sort of like grown up through eras of different types of pop culture. Like now, we went through like the height of like Marvel and DC through Comic-Cons, and now I go to cons and it's like there's so much anime, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't go, oh, this is shit, I'm not coming in. You've got what you make of it, you know what I mean? Because
our generation again, I will probably never broach a cosplay TikTok ever in my life. That's just something that will completely pass me by.
You're saying you would never do one?
No, I'd never have one. It's something that's completely passed me by. I see the younger generation doing the TikTok dances. That's absolutely fine. But it is. It's not, and also it's not like
that's not why they're not all binge drinking and out because they're TikToking.
Yeah. Call yourself a teenager.
Sniff that.
But I wouldn't see that. Don't get me wrong. I'm probably going to be like TikTok dancing, but that's my own internal bit for being an old fucker. Like I wouldn't look at it and go, well, I've fucking got to go home now, don't I?
Stop that dancing, right? Yeah. Go put these dildos in front. Then come back. Yeah. Then you can do your dance.
Yeah. Fucking you see straight. Can you see straight? You're doing it wrong.
Yeah. But
are you talking about your feelings? You're supposed to get fucking numb.
So Mad Max was your first costume.
Yeah, so it was the first one I probably made.
Your first con that you went to?
So the first con I went to was I was wearing Jack Sparrow. So I put the whole costume together and I wanted to go see how I was happy with it. It wasn't whatever.
So you're saying Mad Max was the first one I made. Yeah.
Whereas, as I said, that was when...
Because that was the whole multiple Jacks thing. And that's
which was where it came from. So Mad Max was when I started to do cosplaying. Whereas, as I said, Jack Sparrow was not... I only took it to a Comic-Con because I thought that's a place where I can take it to see how people react to it. But I had no intention of ever going to another one. Yeah. It was more just, I know they exist. I'll go to one, see what people think. Yeah. If they go, that looks good, I'm like, right, cool, then I can start working on how to do this as a job. I'm going to go there
and do this for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. So I did... It's quite a bad one, actually. I did Jack Sparrow, and I seen someone else wearing Jack Sparrow as well.
You're like,
I was like, no. So this is the thing. I got there, and this is my biggest thing, and I will say to anybody that is starting out or has been doing it, there's something to learn from this on how to act. And I'm not telling people how they should or shouldn't be in anything else. Do whatever you want. But this, I think, is universally renowned as you're a dick if you do this.
Did you kill a man?
2. No, so
Multiple jabs.
And so I seen this guy and I was like, oh, sick, another Jack Sparrow. And his looked really cool. I'd like weathered, he'd done stuff with the belt where he'd put his own like tankard on it so he could have a drink for the day. Little things I was quite impressed with, and this I was like, oh, genius idea. So I went up to him and I was expecting like a bit of a back and forth, like a fun.
Oh, cool.
We both love this character. How cool is that? Bearing in mind, I've never been to a con before, so I'm like thinking, oh wow, someone else has put in all this effort and maybe just turned up to hope people think this is cool.
Yeah.
So I went up to him and was like, oh, you're right, bro. I didn't say bro. I don't usually say bro, I'll be honest. That was a lie. So I went up and was like, I said something from the film. I was like, hello, good sir. And he turned around, and the look he gave me at first was as if like, you know when people have that age-old thing of like, we've both turned up in the same dress, so one of us is going to have to go home and change.
You've got to leave.
Exactly. Yeah. So he looked at me like that, and it just went dead, and I was trying to be like, oh, yours looked really cool, this and that, and he was like, cheers. And then just turned away, and I was like, right, okay. And he was there with his partner and their mate or something. And as soon as I turned away to the person I was with at the time, I was trying to like hold in my, I feel a bit shit. But, that was cool. And I heard his partner and her mate saying to him, don't worry, yours looks way better anyway. And I was like, oh, what a prick. But I didn't have any confidence in myself at all at this point. So I was like,
that's your first.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, that was shit.
Yeah.
And it just made me think, well, what's the point in me doing Jack Sparrow? Because there's other people, that's their attitudes towards it.
Yeah.
I was like, right, never mind then. So I didn't bother. So I was like, but I did enjoy the day at the convention and all the people that did come over to me that were nice and stuff. So I thought, maybe with Jack Sparrow, he's one that's going to be a bit too judged and this and that. And I thought, I haven't seen any Mad Maxes. A few months have passed, I watched Mad Max, and then I was like, that's weird as well, I love the universe, but...
Yeah, just quickly, that's weird because some characters are judged more heavily. Yes. It's a weird thing.
I find it a lot with certain ones like Superman, you'll get Batman, Harley Quinn seem to have it a lot, and things like that.
And they shouldn't be.
No.
You just, if you're in your right mind, we're all just here to have fun. That's what cosplay is. Anyone can be anything, do anything, and all look great, and all be kind to each other, and that's the attitude.
Try a Star Wars one.
Jesus Christ. I think there's some are for certain reasons. Like I think Star Wars, there's such a. Because I mean, Jesus Christ, anyone
collection of arseholes policing.
That
won't go in, will it?
Anyone. Oh, yeah, no, they don't.
It's staying in.
Because they're not all. Because we know some lovely Star Wars cosplayers. We also know cosplayers. Not even cosplayers. I would say you're talking about.
No, I'm not talking about
groups of people who gather together and go, "You can't wear that. It's not been professionally signed off."
Yeah. It wasn't forged in the final,
Oh, fuck.
It's like...
You're a little bit taken? Oh, no.
Did you make that in the Mustafar region? No. Right. Don't wear it then. Oh, sorry.
Don't worry, his looks better.
That should be about 6 inches, mate. And so should yours, you fucking arsehole. But your girlfriend doesn't complain.
Lightsaber's all right. Them, they real kyber crystals.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think ones like that.
I think you find an Ewok should have a bit of shit underneath his boot. Sorry.
Just say, technically.
Just a bit.
But if you want to be like accurate,
because I find it's all about the accuracy. It's got to be. It's either it looks like it's from the film or it's not the proper one. And
I think a lot of cosplayers struggle with that. Just in general, I know I did accuracy. Like it's either something you don't ever think about or you think about all the time.
Yeah.
And you're always either trying to improve on or you're like, if you're in your right mind, you just get to the point you're like, you know what, this is I did a good job. This is that. This is
and also
it depends what you're striving for.
Body proportions, meaning you should always try and make your costume to you, not like the film, because the person who's in that film is more than likely going to have a kind of different body proportion.
Hell yeah.
Like, and so you cannot ever, and sometimes things take the wayside for movement. You're like, oh, but the pauldron is like here, but if I do that, I literally can't move anywhere. So it's got to be smaller.
Perfect examples of stuff like that is in gears, for example. I see loads of people trying to make the armour and everyone struggles with how to proportionise it. Not that I've made the armour properly. I've got a lot of friends to make it because they're way better at it than I am. But the stuff I've talked to them about in terms of how to make it, I've got a long torso. The characters in Gears, it's like their hips come up to about here. They are built 7 feet wide.
They're non-human
cutscenes,
propulsion.
But then on all the cutscenes and stuff, they'll move their arms and their arms go through the chest graphics or the metal panels.
I had it with my Aquaman costume. It's physically, it doesn't, you can't exist with something that is all scales made of one thing and put your arm across your body or
you saw
shoulder up.
Production shots and you're like, that's all fucking orange.
When I was making my Aquaman costume, I struggled forever. And I'm like, and then behind the scenes, and it's like, it's all missing, and there's blue dots.
And they put it in after. Of course they do.
Thor, everyone that's struggling and trying to be as big as Thor, by the way, if you watch the stuff for Infinity War, where his arms are his biggest, he's got massive arms, Chris Hemsworth. I'm not taking that away from them at all. But if you look at him behind the scenes, yes, they're big. Chris Hemsworth, his actual body shape and size, so there's 3 different types of body sizes. Can't remember them all. I was going to sound really intellectual.
Xenomorph.
And so he is whatever the more slimmer one is. So on things like his suits, for example, where he's got the collar, the bit that covers his traps, he's actually got quite shallow traps. And it's not that his traps aren't big, he has done immense work in them, but he doesn't have broad shoulders. So the way they design the suit is to make it look like he has bigger traps to bigger shoulders. But even still, on some bits, his shoulders then look smaller because the traps are now bigger. So if you look at Infinity War, the sleeves he has, they are completely CGI. When he comes back after he's done the forge and he's got Stormbreaker, his arms are not real throughout any of that bit.
Is that? I've never noticed
all the scale armor.
I've never seen any behind this.
In some of the others, they've had scale armor cleverly done in certain ways, and then when it bends in certain ways, they do it in different bits. But throughout all of Infinity War, the scale armor is not real. And on top of that, they've enhanced the size of his arms by like 2 to 3 sizes.
I'll have a look at that. That's
mental. Even Tom Holland as Spider-Man, who we all look at Spider-Man and go, he's a lot slimmer. They also have expanded his by like an inch on all of his arms and everything.
It's that whole suit's like...
Exactly. And this is the thing. We would then look at Tom Holland and go, oh, he's quite skinny. He's like, no, he's not. He's ripped to shit and he's done all the work that needs to be there. He is what a normal human is when you put in shit tons of effort on a mental diet and go to the gym. Your job is to now do backflips and go to the gym. And he is doing that because you're going to be Spider-Man.
And we're going to pay for you to have a chef 6 times a day.
And on top of that,
all that stuff.
We still are going to CGI your shape to make you bigger than what you are.
And you've got even Henry Cavill was wearing a muscle suit when he was Superman.
Exactly, and he's ridiculous.
I think I told you this one. The comedian, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back after this. Jeffrey Dean Morgan had
that's great.
So everyone thinks the comedian Jeffrey Dean Morgan, that's what he looks like. It's not. That's a rubber suit. And the seams are just hid so well.
That's a really well done one, because then you get really bad ones like Juggernaut in that third X-Men or whatever, and it's just like so absurd.
Perhaps it's because his facial structures, how they did him, it just looks right. It looks right, and especially when he's standing there with the other people in the muscle suits, it fades into it, or how they've done his suit. And I think the thing to get to there is if you do this, or if you do start this journey, is to realise that make yourself look like you've been cast in it, but don't try and mimic this person who's like had an entire studio go, right, what you do now is train and eat for this, because it's not even the entire film. It's a few shots which will probably accumulate to maybe 2, at most 3 weeks of you shirtless in it. Because that's when they're doing it. So you've got to be ultra fit for this day. You've got to not drink any water. and that's what you look like. Don't go to con and not drink any water.
But I know exactly what you mean, because it is like you wonder why people have like body issues and
things
all
like
those
that.
sort of like.
This is where one of the biggest things that I've been doing with like my fitness and stuff, because I've always struggled with my size and things like that.
Looking good, by the way, mate. Looking good.
Cheers, guys. I used to always struggle about being skinny or small and things. I used to always get comments and stuff when I was little. And you know what? Funnily enough, looking back I wasn't exactly like ridiculously. I was just a normal sized person.
Yeah.
But obviously, people didn't give a shit about giving comments. I mean, people now will. The amount of people that say fat comments and stuff to people that are like, and even if you are a bit more, it's hard to say, isn't it? I suppose we've all been conditioned to say that, if you are a bit more overweight, it's like, you're not overweight. You're only overweight for what you want yourself to be. It doesn't matter what anyone else's standards are for you. But if you feel you're more overweight, it's like that again is down to yourself. But in terms of like whatever dress size you wear or top size you wear, that is because some people are taller. Like, for example, if I wear a large now, it's very different to what it is if someone else that's and that's 2 foot smaller than me that wears one.
All larges aren't the same.
No,
like it's just ridiculous.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And it's like, you'll get people that on a picture they're like 1.5 foot smaller than me, but they are. You would think, oh my god, they're 5 times the size of me. But it's like, but then they're smaller and this and that, but they're wider in this way.
Just being healthy about it, isn't it? Especially in cosplay, like when you're, like you're saying, you're looking at the like epitome of like money and training and fitness, and then CGI, and then you're like, I'm going to replicate that, and then you get in if you are chasing accuracy to 100% like that, you're going to fall short, because of course you're like, so just be confident and happy in what you're doing and just go and have fun. But also, it's like, just keep that in mind, because otherwise it's like a slippery slope to just like negatively always be like.
And one because I am quite into my fitness, because it's become a thing I do for cosplay, but it's something that I've ended up just enjoying anyway, just for my own mindset. It's something that helped me through a lot of stuff on my own anyway. It keeps me like a bit
Well, it's not a bad thing to say that everyone should do it. Like literally. Not saying everyone has to do it. I'm saying like, also you should do it.
You should all go to the gym 4 days a week and lift heavy. It's like no, getting up and going for a walk or some. That is the same thing. That is working out. That is doing movement.
More fitness equals good. Like it's just a positive return.
Also, when you get to our age, you have to start stretching before shit.
Jesus Christ.
You genuinely have to.
But
I get up and do stretches before I go to work now. I'm like,
but you have to, and that's the thing. And there's nothing like we look at that as if it's like, oh, that's not good. As if, oh God, you're having to do stretches. Like the one thing I've started to realise, I've been doing stretches lately because I want to kind of potentially work on a bit of a performance if I can, as a certain character I'm doing at some point. But it's like, all I've started to realise is, why have I not been doing this for ages? I've struggled with pains and stuff. And I'm like,
because the thing is, you grow up and nothing hurts you for a certain period of time, and you're just a rubber band.
I'm invincible. And you get to that point where you're like, fuck.
So it should be part of everyone's. If you can get a bit in there, it's going to benefit you.
But it's also one thing I've learned to be good with myself is knowing my body. So if I take a few days off the gym, I've got a stupidly high metabolism, so I can eat loads of crap and not gain weight. But if I also forget to eat, so my body will keep eating itself if I don't really eat much either. So. And I know a lot of people go, oh, I wish I had that. It's like, but then when
because this grass is always greener, because it's like...
When you struggled with the skinny comment, and you're constantly, your body is making yourself skinny, that's the same as someone that feels like they gain weight a lot and they can't burn it off. It's the same thing, just on the opposite side. It's just a spectrum you've not been through yourself if you're on that side of it. But for me, it's one of them, I've learned to understand my body to know what to expect. So I won't disappoint myself, if that makes sense. Like, I won't work out for ages, get to a point and go, oh, this hasn't gotten any bigger, or that's not doing it. I'm like, well, I know that wasn't going to get much bigger, or I know this was that. and you know when you think, oh, but for that character, I'm not going to look like this, and it's like, so before it, I'll think, well, I know I can't get that big, so I will wear a muscle suit for that one because it's integral to the character or something, or I'll go, right, so I will change the costume accordingly to work with what my size is, or there's somewhere I'm like, I just like the character. I'm not that bothered about the accuracy. It's more, I don't care.
So I mean, it's having like a healthy attitude to all the aspects. It's like,
and I'm saying that as if it's easy.
Yeah.
It's took me a while to
It's
get
so
to that
difficult.
point, and it's still challenging now. Like, I don't wake up and that's my constant attitude. It's just, I know I've reached that point at least enough so that if I'm ever having an off day, I can convince myself of, even the day after or whatever, I can kind of go, okay, but remember, you're all right. You know where you're at. You don't just lose or gain weight in a day. It's not how it works. Your muscle doesn't just disappear. If I don't go to the gym now for a month, I will obviously look a little bit smaller. Muscle memory is a real thing. The second I go back to the gym, it all pops straight back in. I'm like, oh, right, it's there. So don't stress if you're having that month where things are crap, work's been hard, you can't really go. It's fine. At the end of the day, when you think, oh, but I've got that convention coming up and I'm going to be wearing that costume, it's like, you don't have to go. You want to.
That is such a big thing about cons.
But it's
like
more
the
just
FOMO. Like,
it's taking the pressure off yourself. It's like, there's going to be another one.
Because I've been to cons and I've been stressing about whether it's like how I look or my costume or making it or this or that, and I've overstressed to the point where I go to a con and I'm like, I shouldn't even come. I shouldn't have actually been here. And it's always made okay because I think we're all in the same boat, which is like, you go to con for the social aspect, as much as you do the cosplay, and so that always balances it out. But it's like, why did I stress about all this crap? Like staying up, I had no sleep, which is bad for your health anyway. All that sort of stuff. It's just, it all like just compounds. What I was saying to you about something, it's like, just calm down. Yeah. Calm down, it's fine. It's all right, just calm down.
Yeah. And that's
it's going to be all right. It's like
since I've been doing it that way, the amount... I've actually, funnily enough, I've remembered the cons I've been to more in like a way of... Because I'm not... So many of the other ones I don't remember going to, like I can't recall much from them because I was so focused on myself before going. Yeah. That's the bit that stuck in my head, all the negative
rather
shit
than
of just
what
stressing.
actually,
And I didn't even enjoy the con. It was just like, well, okay, so you got to that point you've wanted to work at and you don't even remember going, so what was the point anyway? But that's when it was more about but I need to be seen and I need to be, again, which brings it back around. What's that say? I can't read.
I don't know. Something came up. Was it? How are we on time, battery-wise? And we are back. Sorry, guys, we had a quick edit point there. Quick change of a battery, and we're all good. And we've been refueled as well.
So with doing the likes of Jack Sparrow and stuff, things like that, as we were saying with like Star Wars and things, some people are very about the accuracy. And it's all about that's how much accuracy you need, or otherwise it's not warranted and whatnot. And then I find with characters like Superman and stuff, I'm saying that actually, I don't want to say anything to do with Superman only because I've never cosplayed him, so couldn't really say.
I have gone.
You probably will, but
you do a good Superman. You do a very good.
See,
Superman.
I've had a few people say this, but. Sorry, that sounds like such a pretentious...
but a few people sounded like Superman. You're Superman, that super guy.
Some massive with a great chin in it. Couldn't help it. I had to be Superman. Weren't going to be anybody else.
Greatest superhero ever.
So super. But no, I've a few people have said, have you ever thought of doing Superman or Batman? It's like, for me, Batman is one of those characters I love, but I love seeing someone else as him because I don't see myself as Batman. I like to see him or not know he's
it's
around.
Also you get in that thing and you're just like,
So, because James always said that, he's like, why don't you ever do a Batman? I'm like, well, because when we started,
you've both got the jawline for the cow. Like, I don't have to.
I've got like a bit of a. Mine's a half and half feminine, but not feminine. Which I've
got a beard for a reason. So,
but I've always think is like, but James is Batman. I'm Nightwing.
Yeah,
so it's a weird thing in my head where I'm like,
rule where it's like,
I'm
Nightwing takes the cowl at one point.
He does, and if I would do that one, but it's it would be the thing. Oh, cool. Oh, Bruce Wayne. No, Dick Grayson Batman. If you read this comic,
it'd be like, you know, if your dad come home and seen you trying on one of his suits, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah,
you like, take that off, and it's like dead big or whatever. That's what it would feel like.
Yeah,
but Superman, he's one of those characters I've never. Everyone's gonna hate me for this. I've never really been into Superman.
Do you know? No, it's so
not that I
common.
actively
It's so
dislike him.
common.
He's just never been one of them.
So to get me to do the costume, James is a massive Superman fan. He was like, "Read these comics."
I gave you like 4 books, and I was like, "Read that," because you was like, "I'd sort of like Superman, but I'd never really." And I just gave him 4.
And I had to do the
But there's also a huge issue with Superman that people are sort of. They're not attracted to him because it's like the Jesus problem. It's like he fixes everything, does everything, he's fine. You can't. And it's like, how do you write that? And it's why I'm really looking forward to James Gunn's Superman, because more Superman is good because I love Superman, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they do it, because the core of the character is very much similar to Captain America. Like, it's like he's just a good person trying to do the right thing. But with Superman, it comes with all this power, and that turns some people away from the character. And it's like, well, he can fix any problem. So it's difficult how you write the character. So yeah, it's not. I get it when people are like, I do not like Superman.
One of the good comics he gave me, one of the ones was how these powers put him on the outside, and like it was a great moment for me. Is he can hear people talking about him. Like because he's got super hearing, and they're like, cool. He's like, oh, yeah, he's such a weird, and because he's Superman, of course he's not going to do it. But
that's in. I forget what book
Superman
it was.
for All Seasons.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
So
yeah.
he's sitting there, able to hear like all of his work colleagues call him like weird, and like nobody likes him, and he's just there like.
Smallville dealt with it quite well in that, because you're like, you look at him, and you're like, you are. It's what everyone would want. Like, everyone wants to be the best, and it's like that character. It's like Smallville did it really well in that he grew up feeling just like the ultimate outsider.
Yeah.
You know,
He's
lost everyone, and he's on a planet, and his mum and dad love him, but he knows he's different, and he will always be different, and he has to deal with that for the rest of his life while handling this whole like all these abilities, and it's like that. It's like a freak, and it's like
cannot have an outburst.
Cannot.
Oh, Tom Welling. Sorry, there's an incredible moment in Smallville where he's like. Screams at his dad, and it's early on in one of the seasons, and it's like Jonathan Kent is like having a go at him basically, because I think it was like he went to play football, and he tries out for the team, and Jonathan like basically telling him off, and he turns around, he's like, I know it's hard, and he's like, do you? He's like, do you know it's hard? He's like, every time one of them comes at me, he's like, I have to consciously make the decision to fall down, or it's like about every time I shake someone's hand, because literally the power he has is so absurd that he's spending his whole life, especially as a young person, like trying to mitigate the strength he has and the abilities he has, and it's definitely something there if you want to get into it.
That's the bit that interests me the most.
And there's also, because you also, and this was only my only little headcanon, is when another bit in Smallville where he just comes back from like, I think it's a car fire or the car exploded.
Is it? You didn't bruise this time?
Yeah, and he's like, you didn't bruise this time. He's like, I didn't even feel it. And as he leaves, they start talking about it, and I'm like, he could hear that. It's like he could absolutely hear them being like, yeah, I know. What do we? Even to his parents, it's like, oh Jesus Christ!
I forget what it's in, whether it's a book or a film or something. But there's a moment where he talks about how it's like sometimes the best lesson to learn is because he's like, I can hear everything. He's like, the best lesson to learn is when not to listen, because he's always been spoken about by someone. It's like
that's that great thing as well, and especially from like in the comics, you get more from his side. Is that it's more like, I'm not going to be bad. Please stop treating me as if I'm going to be. I just want to be liked here. I'm just trying here, and just please allow that.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about the whole reason he puts on that and does everything, and it's because he's just trying to be liked, which is a weird kind of like. Because
you think, and as well, this is the thing of people like, why would people? How could they not tell he's Clark Kent? People aren't looking for Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Because if you're Superman, why would you be anything else but Superman?
That's the thing, isn't it? I suppose we're always seeing it from the aspect of, well, we know that Clark Kent is Superman, so we're looking at him as if that's just Superman in a pair of glasses. And it's like, not to anyone that doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be. There's
If
versions
you're
where it's
literally
done really
walking-
bad, and there's versions where it's done really well, and it's so it's.
But if there was a Superman, and he's flying around, he's saving people, and all I'm seeing is pictures from far away, right?
yeah,
And this
it's because
guy,
you have them in the head as the two characters, so you
But I suppose if he's always doing things so fast and things like that, you're probably
you wouldn't
always
get-
assuming, well, he's always flying around on his suit. Why would he be down here amongst us?
like that would be like the ravings of a madman. If someone called Superman works in a newspaper room, you're like,
all right.
I'm sure he does.
All
man.
right, Steve.
Yeah.
but I'm getting obsessed with like character that I love. I want to talk about because I want to get onto your costumes now because you brought these costumes along, right? And they're in particular. I know Geralt for you is a character that you just love, like you're extremely passionate about. So
Books, games.
yeah. Exactly.
Netflix.
So I want to talk about the costumes. So which one do you want to start with?
Geralt first, yeah.
So talk us through, because we were saying before about when we was putting it on, because this is the thing with Suit Up. When you come on Suit Up, because you will all come on Suit Up, the hard thing for us is when we're starting to put costumes together and we're putting them on the mannequins, you just start, oh, look at this, and it's like, stop talking about it, because we're like, it's like, save it for the show. So you were saying basically, Geralt, everything is made by you except for the boots or
So
something?
basically the boots I ordered, the joggers, the trousers are ordered.
You're giving it away.
Then, I'm trying to think now. This, so it basically came as just the blue ball. That was it. That's the potion bottle.
Oh, right, okay.
So the cork and stuff that's in there is a USB light.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, this is what I miss about this show.
You charge that and you twist the bottom and the light comes on. It's an LED light.
So
my whole point in this, from the trailer when they first released The Witcher 3, when he is, it's the, I don't know what it's called now.
Wild Hunt.
No, it's the one where he's fighting the Bruxer in the shed.
Night to Remember.
Yes. So he's got a moon dust bomb.
Yeah.
And I love the way they implemented that. So I thought, right, how can I get one that lights up? Like it looks.
it looks like it's doing something. Like it
I
has
didn't
something
want to
in
just
it.
put fairy lights in it and have it look like there's fairy lights in it.
Yeah.
So I found out what you can do is kind of make your own lava lamp, which it doesn't have anything in at the moment, but if you fill it with glitter, so there's glitter all around the outsides, and then if you put in, it's 2/3 of the bottle is baby oil, and then 1/3 is water. So the water and the oil are constantly mixing, but never touching, and then the glitter is moving around with it.
Has that got that in there at the moment?
No. It's
Right,
empty.
so you're saying you put in and then empty.
So you do that, and then with this little LED lamp, because it's waterproof, when you put that in, it's keeping all of the oil and the water lit up. So all of the glitter is sparkling, but it's always constantly spinning around.
That is
So it looks
incredible.
like a moon dust bomb. I did all that off my own back.
That's really
So I was quite
impressive.
impressed with that.
sick.
I need to talk to you afterwards about that light because I've got something I'm trying to work on at the moment. That's really clever.
So
that's really cool.
That was fun to do, and then I basically just made the little leather harness to keep it in.
Was that me?
Then
It was on one of those.
the dagger I bought, I haven't actually had that with him. I used it for Vesemir when I did him not too long ago. I just thought I'd chuck it on there for now. But the hook is foam. It's not my best work, but I'd never used foam before.
Not my best.
So basically, the whole making of this was at the beginning of lockdown. Literally, we'd been in lockdown for like 2-3 weeks, and I was going a little bit stir crazy. And I wanted to do Geralt's armor, but I didn't know. I wanted to do one of the easier ones because I did not have any faith in myself of doing this one. But I was like, the Kaja Morhen armor is my favourite one.
Yeah.
As soon as lockdown had started, I was like, right, I'm doing a new playthrough of The Witcher 3.
You hadn't done anything before, had you, of Geralt?
No.
This
Yes, I did his. The
Did you have like a
Manticore.
previous?
Oh, okay.
In The Witcher 1, the game, his armor in that, they then redid it in The Witcher 3 as like one of the. If you do one of the Witcher gear quests, you can get it in there, and it's obviously, it looks newer, more updated and stuff. So I did the Manticore armor, but it's basically like a leather jerkin and stuff, but it was more just clothing.
Yeah.
There's no like armor panels to it or anything.
Yeah.
So I kind of avoided doing any of the scary hard work that I didn't want to try. Whereas this one, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to go about doing it, especially like this chest piece and things. And one of the people I used to speak to at the time had loads of spare leather. So I got some off him, but I was like, I've never used foam, I've never used leather, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I thought, surely, to do the chest piece, if I get, to make it fit, if I do get a t-shirt of mine that I know fits, literally put the t-shirt on a piece of foam and draw around it, then that's the right size, surely.
Yeah.
So I made it out of the foam that's underneath this, so it's literally like a vest piece that goes up to there, and then it's another one from the back.
It's like two, so you panelled them basically.
Yeah, I did one a little bit further down for the neck piece, and then one a little bit higher up because I knew it'd obviously have a collar and stuff on it. But it is being held together by wishful thinking and bullshit, to be honest. But it has survived.
You just go like that, the whole thing just...
Well, that's the thing. So the way I've had it
so good.
stored and everything...
It really does.
It looks
but
so
all
good.
of the... Because I've never used a sewing machine either. I don't know how one works.
I still haven't. I'm still trying to get there.
I still haven't. So every one of these hole punches is hand hole punched. So I had to do it on the foam, and then I had to do it on the
leather. Because you got to go through both.
Yeah. And then it's all hand stitched, but I wanted to
the trousers are hand stitched, aren't they? The lines.
Yes, so all of this is
they
hand
are
stitched
really straight. They're really good.
Yeah.
And they're really well done.
The chainmail on these bits and pieces, so it's all real chainmail. It's actual real.
Yeah.
It's aluminium. The metal on it. It's very heavy, but I had everyone else I'd seen do it has done the way of like getting aluminium wire or steel wire, wrapping it round and then snipping them all and bending them all on top of each other. Only thing I've ever found though with that is obviously hats off to anyone that's done that, because I do not have the time or arseness to be able to. But whenever I've seen people do it, because it's almost like they think it's a good idea at the time and then they can't be bothered. The chainmail ends up being quite sparse because they want to do the least amount of
yes, of course, because it's like puff painting. You start doing it, and there's a section that looks great, and then you're like, I just got to finish this.
Exactly. Don't be wrong. Obviously, some people have done it and stuck to it, but I know full well I wouldn't have. And it'd have had about 5 links for everything. Because it's like whatever the most minimal way I can use to get it done. That was it. Yeah. And I knew that's how it'd end up looking, and I wouldn't be happy with it. And then playing the game, if you look in The Witcher 3, his is so dense and compact with how much is there. I'm like, it's going to annoy me if it doesn't look like that. So I got a chainmail shirt, which at the time, this company that was on eBay, it was like 40 quid for a full-on shirt.
Yeah,
that really literally goes down to almost your knees.
That's really
and
good.
It's got sleeves and everything.
Like,
So I literally got wire cutters and just snipped out rectangles of it and smushed it down.
Yeah.
And
Such a good idea.
That's literally it. So it's all real chainmail, but it's as compact as it is.
How is it attached? You just
so
have to
it's
stitch it on.
sewn underneath, and then glue on top of all the bits and pieces.
Do you know what I'll say about the like? Because I've just been getting into. I've been like going back and playing like old games that I never got the chance to play. And Witcher was one of them. And I really love the character, and I like the look. But I think it's just where I didn't play the game when it first came out, and I've since played games and graphics and movement of characters and stuff has got better. But I look at his character and I'm like, it's great style, but I don't like the way the armor's done. And seeing it in real, because this is spot on, it looks so good. Do you know what I mean? Like it looked to me, I'm like, that's better than what he actually looks like in the. No, because it's like it's almost a bit. I don't know what the way... It's almost like... Because there's so much detail in it because the game's incredible.
Yeah.
But it's very simplistic. It's like if you blur your eyes, it could almost be like a one-piece suit. It's all quite form-fitted on him. Whereas because it's real and it's been brought into like the real world, basically.
Because it's it's separate pieces.
It looks so good.
I feel you must have had that because it just happens through playing the game. Once you start looking at his armour, you do realise it's lots of layers.
Yes.
There's obviously the undershirt. There's that layer with the chainmail. Then there's that bit that goes up. Then there's the belts. And it's like, holy fuck, there's loads in here. But then again, that works for the world because the whole of the Witch world is kind of a cold place because of it's supposed to be.
It's essentially
Polish.
medieval Poland.
Essentially,
so it's
apart from Tucson.
essentially,
Yeah.
which is more or less down towards Hungary or
Yeah.
Italy or whatever. So, but
It's so
with
good, man.
with
And
the
the-
whole thing, one of the other things with the game, it winds me up exactly as I was saying before. So this corset-y sort of piece for him in the game, whenever you twist and turn, his just bends and stretches. I'm like,
I think that's the sort of what I'm
Fuck
trying.
you.
It's like, he's like. He's very like slim to big, and it's just there's not. It's like rubbery
exactly.
almost.
So I had loads of ideas on can I add chainmail onto a corset and have it like the chainmail clip over while the corset clips on.
What? Because
underneath?
you were over paranoid about getting that movement. Like
It was more about keeping it slim fitted rather than it being like a baggy.
Yeah,
Because the
gotcha.
problem is when you've got chainmail and stuff like this, obviously it's very flush.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing. I
tight-fitting,
think
but
when I
then-
look at it in the game, I'm like, it's too. He looks too slick. It looks too like it's-
Armour doesn't sit like that.
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah, yeah.
because, and I was also like, how do you do it where, if this is going to weigh a fair amount, if you're sitting, how's it not going to sag over or bend in the wrong ways or crease?
Especially that, because I think in traditional like medieval, that would be like a skirt. You know what I mean? Like it would be a chain.
Yeah, it's an odd. Because
because it comes down to where the thing and finishes like flush. Yeah.
So the way
that is basically because it's like there's some ties in there down the side that are like a corset connection.
Yeah, so the way I first did it, I did it literally like a tube. So I did it as like a flat piece of leather and then had panels on either side. But then I realised it was too baggy.
Yeah.
So I then had to cut on the sides rather than it just being straight. I then had to do like an hourglass cut.
You're describing everyone first using foam for the first time as well. You ever use foam and you're like, I'm going to do a gauntlet, and you do a gauntlet. And you're
Why
like,
is this bit not sticking to
it's
this?
It's just a tube. And then you're like, I have to put like little little lines in it and stuff like.
So with that, another handy thing that I figured out, by the way, on the inside of this, to get it from not just sagging or hanging over or giving into its own weight, I was like, I don't know how to make a corset. But obviously corsets, they work with having bones in them, they're obviously called. So to make my own boning for this, I got zip ties.
Sorry.
I got zip ties, but kept them unfastened.
Right.
Because obviously they're quite sturdy.
Right.
Yeah.
So just straight zip ties and glued them on the inside. So they keep it
nice.
in like a
It gives it like a skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I lean forwards, they curve rather than any of it. They will not gather or bag.
The material won't bunch because it's been supported by the structure.
But they will bend.
So
So it kind of works like a corset without needing the horrendous everything else that goes with it.
that is awesome.
It's literally got about 8 zip ties on that side and then 8 zip ties on the other, just so, as I said, if I'm ever leaning or doing anything else, it just stays quite flush. But it's never constricting because it's not a corset either.
Yeah.
So to get this to stay, this goes up to about here, and then I've got elastic straps, which you can kind of see on the side that sit over my shoulder.
Which take the weight of those.
So that takes the weight of it, so it does bounce a bit, but it now gives me room to move without it being stuck or being too much. Because otherwise, I think in the game, the way it always looks is as though this chainmail goes all the way up to here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is the point in having 20 kilos more chainmail that's never going to be seen? So I did that on like a bit of a dungarees looking sort of side, and then all of the shoulder pads come off from the chest piece. They kind of just loop into the straps that are on the top.
You were saying about that, which gives you the movement,
Yeah, so these can move and twist without any extra weight. Same with these as well. I've got straps on these that go
around the arms,
around the arms. But yeah, so none of it moves really, which is pretty cool.
So good. And the gauntlets there, they've got like, are they
so these, I will say,
rivets in yourself?
So I'm going to credit Nightly Creation Steve. Thank you very much for sorting me out with this, because these were for the armour he's got in the series.
Right.
The ones I've got at the moment, so the gauntlets I've got recently ripped, the fingers on them.
Okay.
So because I didn't have the gauntlets, the arm guards that go underneath the ones I've got are quite plain.
Right.
So I thought for this,
I will
stick
put
out
on
the cool ones that Steve did. That they are literally, I mean, quite effective, these, but they are literally, the pins that you just...
I was going to say, like a stationary.
He did that on the whole armour that I bought off him a while back. It's a genius idea. because they're actual metal as well, so it works. So and then the wig, as I was saying before,
we were so good about the wig.
Biggest part of the wig.
Yeah.
Because I've done a couple of wigs now for Geralt, and the first one I did in The Witcher 2, because his hair's quite blocky, they did it a little bit more anime-ish, like it's a big spiky sticking out ponytail and stuff, and it's very like it stays in one place. But then in The Witcher 3, it's a lot more realistic of looking hair, but how his hairline is, when I've ended up doing a couple of the others, I've always got the hairline wrong on wigs. We were saying before that it's like, when you tend to cut the lace off a wig, always get lace front wigs if you ever can.
Lace front wigs are when I started doing Thor, I was like, notice the difference between a wig, like the lace front. They're so much better. Like,
if there is a character where literally the hair is coming forwards and a lace front might hinder that, don't get one, but 9 times out of 10 I would say lace front.
And if you search around, you can find a decent, they used to be so expensive. Like
Shine is one of the best places to find them, especially at the moment. I've kind of just give away a bit of a secret there, but
quick.
So when you find, especially when you get like human hair ones and stuff that you can straighten, curl, do whatever you want to.
That's absolute madness.
They are usually, you are looking at like 200 to 300 quid upwards, whereas on Shine you can literally get them for like 40, 50 quid.
Yeah.
Wow,
Some, not all of them. But you can also get synthetic ones for about the same as well, but they're all lace front and they're all very good. But with that one, I then started to do plucking of the receded hairline.
The hairline.
I've got quite a low hairline anyway, which isn't really something to moan about. But when I try and do certain costumes, it's annoying when I've then got to have a wig in front of my own low hairline. And then when it's curved along the top, the hair ends up sitting like down.
Your forehead's just getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, so I've got a forehead that's like that big, and I've got all this hair just sitting around. It's like, hello. It just doesn't work. And it always annoyed me whenever I did it before, because I was like, this just isn't looking.
You're saying something didn't look right compared to how you were used to him looking.
Exactly. And I mean, Geralt's got his scar going up the front of his head, and he's got a lot of like heavy crease lines in his head and stuff and things like that. And it's like, you're not getting the room to do the expression for the face if you're doing that. Yeah. So I started to do the plucking in the corners, and it took forever, and it does take a while, but I promise you when it's done, it looks.
Because you always get, like I say, I noticed when I started doing Thor and Aquaman, I had the same thing. I was like, it doesn't look right. I look like it just didn't look right. And it's all to do with how you're seeing the character and how their hairline is and what their shape face is like and all that sort of stuff. And you get, with lace front wigs, you get like about an inch or so where you can trim that away first, can't you, to an extent, like, and then the difficult bit that you've done is the plucking to remove but it's totally worked. Just,
and then also some of the bits and pieces, like, so see this little dangly piece, and then you get the ones on the other side, and I've got one that's kind of running back and things, and it's like to keep them permanently where they are. Yeah. One thing that's good with synthetic wigs is if you use a hairdryer, don't use a heat gun because it's too much.
No, it's too powerful.
But a hairdryer, if you put like a pen or something behind it and then heat it up, it'll obviously blast in that curve. But you're heating up plastic. That's what a synthetic wig is. Yeah. So you're melting the plastic into, rather than it being a straight shape, it's now in that L-shaped curve. So then when you move whatever out the way, that will stay in a curve permanently. Yeah. And if you add a bit of product and stuff to it, it looks like it's naturally bending in that way. Yeah. So if you ever have like a front part that you want it to, you don't want it slick back, you want it to boof up a little bit, then go back, then heating it up but pushing it forwards will keep that little bit of a boost.
Basically, if you was like tonguing your hair back around like that, but you're creating the same effect with like putting something behind it.
And on top of that, obviously with real hairstyles, you'll have to curl your hair every day or do this. With that'll stay like that for a perfect example. I made that wig 2 years ago and it's still in the exact same shape, and I haven't had to touch it. That's awesome. It'll just stay.
Dude, the whole costume, it looks so good.
It's really comfortable as well.
I don't think I've ever seen you in it either.
The only thing I've seen you in that's not comfortable is I ended up getting the real metal Witcher swords for it, and the only problem I've had with that is the weight of it.
Because it pull your everything back,
and this whole chest piece sits perfectly.
Because I'm assuming if you're attaching it to the back, then the weight, and then you're choking yourself on your own vest. So
it's like it can stay, and I can keep it in the right place, but then the armor starts to take the weight in the wrong ways. So At the
I
moment,
bet that's one of those things where you get out of the costume at the end of the day from con, and you're like, you feel like you like just been in a tin suit all day.
Yes,
and
you've been bent
like,
backwards without realising.
Because this isn't bad. It will just pull my form normally, but it's not. What happens is you're like, fucking hell, my back. Yeah.
You lie down at the end of the day and you're just like a banana. Or like
literally, because it ends up. I realise how much my hips will hurt more than anything else. I'm like, why are my hips hurting? But it's because I'm arching my back.
I always find one leg as well hurts more at the end of it because you're like trying to distribute the weight onto it. Yeah.
So it keeps you out of good form. But if I use the foam swords that I've been buying, perfectly fine. The only thing I need to do with the foam swords is get or make my own scabbards to stick on the back.
What you can do with foam, I've done tests. I've never had a costume that I had to do it on myself. But what's quite a good technique with foam is painting foam with resin, because it keeps the light weight of the foam. But if you add enough layers to the point where you can sand out, because the thing, if you paint resin on it, you'll get drip runs and stuff. So if you because I always find making something like a sword out of foam is annoying because you never get that finish that you want on it. Because it's so difficult to put in the time and the effort to get it like exactly spot on. And what I've seen done tests with before, but like I say, I've never had a costume to do it on, like the need to do it myself, is EVA foam painted like an epoxy resin over the top, few layers, and then rub it down. You have to be very careful you don't crack but you then basically end up with like a 3D print finish on like a hollow foam.
Okay. So it's like
and then you can apply a paint to that resin, which will sit nicer than on the foam because you'll get like a shine on it, and it's
Good idea.
Like I say, never done it myself, but
sounds right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but dude, it's insane. And,
it is one of my favourites. I think
so much for bringing it,
because I've done it. As I said, it was one of the first things where I made like 90% of it from scratch.
Yeah.
It's like all of these buckles and stuff.
And they've all been weathered and
These are all dog collars. All of these bits and pieces, the ones that I've got to actually fasten the whole thing together. All, dog collars are the best thing ever, by the way, because they're real leather, but they're cheap, they're sturdy. They're usually, if you get them for bigger dogs, they're made to
you're looking for like something like a cheap strap, like
because that's the thing. Sometimes if you get a belt from, like for example, the crossed belts in the middle are like cheap fake leather belts from somewhere.
It just so
happened,
sort of stuff.
It just so happened that a couple that I found were the right looking design of what his are. And I was like, oh, perfect. So I got them, and obviously they don't need to clasp. They're literally more there for show. Whereas I knew the ones that are going to be fastening stuff or holding the shoulder pads on are going to be, they're going to need to be sturdy.
Yeah.
So getting dog collars
and it's taking weight as well. Like
that's the fit all the time. And I've had this costume now since 2020.
Yeah.
And I've wore it a fair few times. I've wore it at one con, which was Liverpool early last year, I think.
Yeah.
And again, it's been sat. The chest piece on this has been thrown around so much and squashed and mushed.
But then you start abusing it because you know you can. So like at the end of the day, you're like, oh, whatever, and it's lasted.
I mean, I've moved like house twice since I've had this. I've been up and down the country in it, and it's been smushed. And I've found it in places where I've packed everything.
Yeah.
And I've then gone, oh my God, I've been looking for this for ages, and it's like mush. And I'm like, shit. This has been one of the biggest projects I've done.
And
I've got no templates, no nothing. It's made through bullshit. So I'm never going to be able to recreate it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to have the arseness to recreate it either. So,
but you've got away with it,
and it just so happens to still work. So I've been lucky with it, but it has done quite well.
Oh no, man! Honestly, it's awesome. And then this hang on a minute. This is a woman.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
This is I have zero familiarity with the character.
Okay.
So, but it's a game.
Yeah. So it's from Overwatch.
By the way, you look insane in this. We literally just went to. It was at MegaCon last before filming this, and you were in this. You look so good in this. It's incredible.
Thanks, guys.
But so talk us through this costume.
So this is Junker Queen, who's one of my favourite characters from Overwatch. She's been in it since Overwatch 2. So you've got 3 different classes. You've got like tank characters that are all like bigger characters.
Yeah.
You get attackers and then healers and stuff. So she's one of the tanks. She's literally about I think she's about 7 foot in the game, like 6'8" or something like that.
Which you are pulling off in those heels, by the way.
So
you're doing the work in those heels.
I'm 6'2", but then in the platform heels that are on there, I think I'm 6'7", and then with the wig, I'm like 7 foot, I think.
Fuck
so you're getting up there.
Which works. Whenever we've got Overwatch meets and stuff, for me, like the size of it works really well.
Yeah.
One of the hardest parts, funnily enough, of that whole costume was trying to get my legs as big as hers. That's been one of the biggest challenges that I was like, I need to try and give that a go.
Well, you were saying when we put it on the mannequin, you're like, oh, hang on a minute. Like,
yeah, I was saying one thing
there.
that's quite nice is the shorts that are on there. If anyone did see it at MegaCon or has anyone seen me at one of the others, my legs fill the shorts.
This is mad.
Which is weird because I've not seen it on a mannequin or anything before. So seeing it there, I'm like, oh shit, is that how big my legs are?
Because they're also when we were setting it up, we had another male mannequin because we didn't know what costumes we were going to bring.
Yeah.
And you brought this, and I was like, oh, do you want to put it on a female mannequin? And we was like, I'm in an RN, so we decided to put it on the female mannequin, but we'd already put the bottom half on a male mannequin, and luckily they fitted together, so that's actually the male mannequin's legs.
Yeah.
So, even more reason that it's like you're doing the good work, mate, fitting in them.
But some of the bits that I loved making, purely because it took me back to how I made Mad Max. And for me, making stuff, I'm not great with foam, I'm not great with leather, I can't use sewing machines or anything like that. It's all, I see bits and pieces, I'm like a bit of a junk maker, so it's like I'll see things and I go,
like you see how you can put the puzzle together.
Yes, it's like, ooh, that looks like a so-and-so piece. If you stick that on a something, that looks like that thing from that film or that game or whatever. So, for example, the spiky arm guard on the other side that's got the red arm.
Oh, yeah.
The metal spikes that are in that. I've seen people make spikes out of foam and things and stuff like that. I was like, I don't know how to do it, especially to get them all looking uniform. And I was like, but I want them to look good. I'm going to have to spray them, do them really well, and this and that. I was like, this might end up not looking as good. I ended up using all of those spikes. You can see on the end of them, if you're ever up close, they've all got a different nozzle. So they're all for icing. For cakes.
I was just looking at it, and as you said that, I was
that's so got
cool.
A little squiggly end.
Yeah.
One's got a star. One's got.
Yeah, I can see they've got a little etching, like a millimetre number on it or something. But that's so cool.
But it's one of those things. Like, I don't class myself as like a pro cosplay maker or anything. But whenever people are struggling on how to make stuff, or they're worried about not being the best foam artist and stuff, things like that. Sometimes the simplest option is the obvious answer, and it's not cheating. That's creativity for me.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like.
Also, you say about be like pro this or pro that. It's all subjective because of like levels and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would disagree because I think this is insane. It looks so good. And is this like one of those kids like the little hand things you squeeze and then it picks it up? I was going to say
her whole thing. So it's very Mad Max where she's from in the game. It's in Australia. It's like they're very much against robots and stuff. Whereas in the Overwatch lore, it's all about like humans living with robots in the future. Some people do and aren't okay with it. Robots have had an uprising, so people are like racist towards the robots thing.
Yeah.
In Australia, they are very much against robots.
Right.
So a lot of her stuff, like she's got a knee pad, a shoulder pad, and then that hand on the thing, it's all like she's holding trophies of
like
these are robots that I've killed.
Yeah. They're like trophies and stuff.
So the hand that's on her hip, I was wondering, how am I going to go about doing a robot hand? I was like, I can't make stuff like that out of foam, or at least it'll take me forever. So I
love it when it's like utilising other things.
Yeah, that's
like
what
a dog collar or like
in like a pound shop. It was one of the little kids like grabber hands where you pull the trigger on the end and the hand grips like that.
You're like, Mum!
Yeah.
I found it!
So I cut the whole handle and everything off. Cut the thumb that was off as well, so I could get it on.
So you get it on the
stuck it on the belt. Just fed the belt through it with a zip tie, so it's forever staying on there. And just kind of use that through there. But it's fun because a lot of people have asked me where I got that, how I made the hand, what 3D print file. No, I just got a little kid's toy and done it that way. But because of that, I know it's sturdier than anything I know I would make as well. So it's worked out quite well. funnily enough. And a lot of things like the shoulder pad it's actually got a shoulder pad underneath the helmet.
So it's like you've like clad foam over
the top.
Over an existing shoulder pad.
Yeah,
it's
I
like
just
a
use,
base.
rather than using anything like hot glue, because on like a plastic base underneath, especially something like a
sometimes
shoulder
it's
pad,
too shiny
it will
and
just
like
eventually come off. Whereas I've put wood glue through the whole thing.
The wig is so impressive.
So the wig, I will say, so Abby, my absolute little creative genius mastermind behind so much of my stuff, she made the wig.
That is
she
so
made it in like
impressive.
a day.
Bravo, Abby.
That's incredible.
That is amazing.
And it's one of those where it's not the most accurate, again, which has always been a thing for me. I'm not...
Oh, do you hear that, Abby? Oh, not that accurate.
She's going to kill me. Don't air this bit. But she,
Brave.
it's one of those where accuracy, it's more about getting it to work, making it your own as well. Yeah. So it's like, because if someone starts making a wig that is exact to how her wig is, and then everyone buys that wig, cool, don't get me wrong, now everyone has the same hair as Junk Queen, they all look sick, they all have got the identical hair.
Yeah.
But my thing, for me at least, is like, as I said, with like the nozzles on the arms and the little hand and stuff and things like that, there's bits and pieces of this where I can go, they're Kieferisms. That's my fun of doing it.
It's like you were saying about making it, you like you've been cast as the character almost, and it's like
exactly. And there is
exactly.
also the side of, if I was to do this, especially with a Junker character like Mad Max and stuff like that, it's like, how would you have made this? It's like, well, this is how I make it. Pieces and things I've found.
Also, like I say, I have no familiarity with the character. The hair, I love it. It's so cool. Like
It's
the style, the way it goes back, and
it is solid as well. It does not move like at all, but it is so cool. It's very comfortable. It looks lovely when it's on. And then obviously the rest of it is, a lot of it is the body that I've got to work for, because she is jacked as shit. I don't know if either of you two, I'm not massive into wrestling or anything, but there's a female wrestler called Rhea Ripley.
No, not since like the WWF era.
So Rhea Ripley, she's like a bit of a... Anyone else who knows what I'm talking about. Everyone likes Rhea Ripley. She's cool. But she's massive, she's jacked, but she's very cool and attractive, but very like alternative as well at the same time.
Okay.
And it's basically, you can tell 100%
you can see, like,
she
they
has
were
been
like
designed.
using a template.
She is even essentially, her whole thing is she is the queen of Junkertown by proving herself in a gladiator arena.
Right, yeah, okay.
It's all so
like,
obvious.
very much nods to it. Yeah.
But they look very similar to each other, like face-wise and stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of the rest of it was coming down to like, right, one thing I can use with the whole female dressing up side is like, me doing that, it's like, well, obviously I'm not trying to go for like a petite figure with myself. So if I'm ever to do anything female, it's always going to be a bigger character. So characters like this that I've enjoyed, that have got a lot of femininity, but also they're showing off a lot of masculinity as well. It's like, well, that's very similar to me.
Merge for you to do.
It sits in an area where I feel comfortable with, because I then don't have to go too feminine, which is not me.
Right.
But I do have a lot more femininity than the usual masculine guy, so it sits in a nice area for me.
That's why I joked about when first I was like, this one's a woman, because I'm like, because I think there's a really interesting thing there to talk about, because it's like, I just did not too long ago, I did like a Lara Croft cosplay, and my approach was, I loved the newer like games, and it was like her character and her look and her style. I absolutely loved it, and I was just like, I had this thing, I was like, I can cosplay that. I was like, I can do that. But I just had like, I just take the look and just make it like my own.
Yeah.
Whereas this, obviously, it's a female character, and it's had like, when you're in it, you are more so what I've done. Like, I've just literally taken the look and put it on. You've actually got like prosthetics and stuff, and you've got like that extra step. So like, just talk us through that, like that whole side of things.
So Right, it'll jump back a fair bit on stuff I've grown up with, but like
because he was also saying like I'm cool to talk about anything related to that.
So the size to this is obviously you can't see the boobs that I usually have on in that
because they are exquisite.
They do look very, very real, but they're made out of silicone. There's a lot of people have started to wear certain bits and pieces of stuff like that. Some people might know or be more familiar with some of the silicone parts. If anyone does want to know which ones I use, let me know, because they're not the most expensive, but they are the best visually.
There's
looking
also
and
a
quality.
huge range of that stuff, and it all dabbles into a wide range of like uses and what they're for and everything. So I can imagine if I had to look for a silicone mask a little while ago. It's a minefield. If you have like stuff,
and on top of that, there's a million that you might buy and they turn up and look nothing like.
Oh my god,
there's
and they'll like show you pictures of this silicone thing, and it's not. It's from a different brand's thing.
Yes.
And what you get through is not that thing at all.
And on top of that as well, I mean, being a guy, I've got, slightly broader shoulders and things, stuff like that. So you've got to remember, even if you're looking at the picture and they look fantastic and someone is on the other end showing you a video, this is exactly what they look like. You've also got to take into account, okay, how are they going to look when they sit on you?
Yeah.
Because it's all well and good if you put them here on the table and you see them, they look cool. The shape of them's great, this and that, whatever, it's about the right size. When you put them on, they're going to stretch over your chest. So if you've got some boobs or whatever,
again, it's proportions, body size, how it's going to
So there's getting them bigger or getting them shaped in this way, not getting them too big, because they'll protrude rather than come out wider.
I'll tell you what, though, as well, if you get quality silicone products, they fucking stretch. Like you get so much give out of a really well-made silicone.
I was always putting them on very it would take me forever to
careful,
get them on,
I don't want to break it,
because you feel like it's just going to split and ping off, but they don't. And also one thing I've found, which has been really handy with them, is the neck that was on the one that I did have. It came up to literally like up here, which looks great.
Yeah.
But the only problem is I'd find whenever I'd turn or twist it'd crease.
Yeah.
And also how warm it gets under there, and sometimes it can feel like
you take them off and it's just water.
Exactly. So I was kind of like, well, because that's an end, surely you can cut through that and it's not an issue.
Yeah.
So I did it on a pair.
If you do it carefully, you can trim it really easily. Yeah. So to wherever
it looks weird as shit because there's bits of flesh just like on the foot.
Yeah. And it's horrible. It feels weird, doesn't it? It's like,
But you can literally trim bits off the edges. Like there's ones that I wore for She-Hulk as well, because I've done her before, where I cut them off at the back, because it basically sits like a sports bra. You put your arms through and it covers your back and comes around through the whole midriff, goes around your back. But I cut the ones off for She-Hulk, so it literally sits like a bib instead, which I found it wasn't as
because then you're also dealing with where the lines merge from what you're wearing versus your own skin.
Exactly.
And
then there's also it's just how much of an upheaval it can be. Like how we were saying about wearing Geralt and it pulls on your back. Sometimes you can have that depending on the size.
Every man should wear a pair of fake breasts.
Exactly.
Feel the pain.
But it's the weight of them and things like that is strange.
Yeah.
Because you're not used to it. But they look really good. I will say, like in terms of seamlessness.
It's weird because when I saw Megacon, I was like staring, like just being like, they look so real, and then I was like, wait, am I being inappropriate?
So colour matching is something that's hard to do with them. Quite often
so
you can
hard.
only get
hard.
You can usually only get like 3 or 4 different colours, like completely pale, slightly tanned, or obviously very
you get
dark.
like it's like I think one of the brands I was looking at, because I had like a silicone mask and it was like natural, tan, brown 1, brown 2. And it's like, that's it. You're like,
it's like, but then what someone's natural is to someone else's natural is like, well, what does that mean? Or tan. I've had 2 different tan ones. One's come in one, and then one has come that's like black.
It's just such like it's like stereotypical, generic, broad like colour scale.
And also, I know for like the summer and winter, my complexion changes drastically, like genuinely drastically, and so you could have something. Well, I can't wear that in the winter months.
But one thing I did find with all of them, which is how I made the She-Hulk ones green, because obviously if you paint them, because it's silicone, it'll just come off.
But what you can
do is use eyeshadow. So eyeshadow stains the silicone and it stays. Cool. So if you're doing, for example, green, which I've done, you do darker green for where your shadow is, which I know sounds obvious, and then you do green where it's more normal, but then you've got to look at what sort of green you're going for. So She-Hulk, for example, where it starts to get lighter, so where you would have areas that catch more light. So, for example, if you're doing your shoulders,
because you got to avoid
the front of the shoulder or here is catching more light than this bit is, so you would do it more yellow.
Right, yeah.
So you go like from yellow to green.
because it's like a colour chart scale.
Yeah, which you can Google and look for colour chart palettes and things, stuff like that. So with Junker Queen, because she's very tan, she's from Australia, but it's a case of obviously not wanting to go too down the road of like, venturing into the blackface area.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Exactly.
I did Aquaman once. And I had to have a conversation with Ellie because I think the last time I did it, I'd just come back from holiday and I was super tan, and so I had like a makeup for like complexion and blend and stuff. And then I think I didn't wear it till like a year later. And then I put the makeup on. I was like, oh fuck no, I'm gonna get in trouble.
Because you said to me,
because it changes so drastically.
And someone's questioned me, and like I said, like complexion before, because you've said to me before, when I've come back from somewhere sunny, you go fucking hell like that, and people have said to me, it's like, are you fake tanning? I'm like, this is literally how I look because of sun.
That's one thing I am lucky with, is that my family are Italian and Polish.
Yeah.
So I have got the drastics of suiting being ridiculously pale. I can go ridiculously pale, but then if I tan, I go ridiculously tan. Like I can go very, very dark and anywhere in between.
That's like me. And I think it's, especially in the cosplay world, people are always on the lookout for, what the hell are you doing?
Get that guy!
Yeah, you're like, I swear to God, this is genetic.
That's the thing, because it could be like a character that I'm not even supposed to be tan for. But if I've just been on holiday, I'm like, sorry, this is actually my skin.
This is how I'm going to look.
Do anything about this?
Yeah.
But and that's the thing. And I think it's always good to kind of go in the thing of like, if you're changing your, like, say, tan or your base. Like tan, like
I heard Satan.
Base tan.
Because you said Satan. You're changing like Satan.
If you're changing your base tan,
you're changing Satan.
if you're going Caucasian, but like a tan Caucasian, like an Australian, I think you're safe. Anything else, just smash the costume and the look.
Yeah, don't.
Don't.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? Because it's a hard one to venture on that line. But then it's also, I think, as long as you're going within realms that you know you naturally can achieve yourself, it's not.
It's a good gauge.
Because then that way you're never going to upset anyone. You can always show to some, or let's completely reword that. That's a lie. You'll always upset someone.
You absolutely will.
But you've at least got something to go back on of saying, actually, I naturally am that colour, or can be. It just depends if I've been living in my bedroom for a few years, or whether I've been outside in the summer. So that way you know full well you can cover yourself. You're not you don't have to stress on what parameters you're going out of. That, on top of that, you don't have to do as much colour matching, because you know you can naturally go that colour, so a lot of the work's going to be done for you. But
the cosplay community is always very... It's always from a place of wanting to be kind, but because of that, people can be extremely like on people's cases for certain things.
Yeah,
everyone has different opinions about
well, that's the thing, isn't it? And a lot of the time, it's not knowing what people's intent is. So it's like we always want it to be a safe space, but sometimes it's at the cost of everything. If you want to be safe with stuff, you then have to also worry about things being overly safe, which can cause issues for other things. And I think some of those, majority of the time, most people will, as I said, for example, I work permanent nights, so I can spend a lot of the time being pale. But then if I was to go on holiday, I would come back and be like very, very, very dark brown, just naturally. And a lot of people would be like, what the fuck is Kiefer doing? Why is he just thinking this is okay? Understandably so. People would assume, like, why are you trying this on? This isn't okay. But it's also a case of, okay, but there is overcorrecting. And if you've then got the means to go, no, I appreciate what you're worried about. But this is naturally how this goes, blah blah blah,
That's
and whatnot.
it.
And most people will go cool, but I think some people, there is also the side of some people want to look better online, so they will try and
you're basically talking about basically virtue signaling, like being
so some people will be like, look, if I'm picking them up on,
and this is
like
I'm saying this about everything. We're also talking about like skin colouring, reference to this one specific thing, but just cosplay community in general, very quick to like do the right thing.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, sometimes it overcorrects and it's like, calm the fuck down. Like,
as much as you can get an arsehole that will actually blackface for a costume, and we're all thinking, well, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
It would be silly to not assume that there are also dicks on the other side that are trying to pretend to be nice.
Yeah.
It's just how everything happens.
Yeah.
If you've got an arsehole for one reason, there's always going to be an arsehole for the opposite reason. And that's never one side is.
I think whatever it's in regards to, if you're like about it, talk to people.
Yeah,
talk
exactly.
to other cosplayers, talk to other people, talk to other whatever. Just like be like, is this cool? What's your advice on this? That's the safest way to play something like that.
And also, if you are unsure, that tells you enough in itself. It's like, at least, yes, go and question. Don't just wing it and see what happens. Because it could literally be one of those things where, because you then won't have a proper answer for why you've done it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna. It's like you just look like you're giving a bad excuse in court, and it's never gonna, literally never gonna wash down well. And
bad court reading, and that's it.
It's just not gonna go well.
But honestly, this, like I say, you look so good in it. It's
Thank you.
Such an insane costume.
Yeah.
One of the big sides to it, as we kind of slightly touched, was obviously the dressing as a female. So for me, was like it's something I've kind of brought up. Funnily enough, when we did this podcast last,
we were saying before.
I mentioned I was thinking of doing Zarya from Overwatch, who's another female character, but she's a Russian weightlifter.
Okay.
But it wasn't so much that I'm that attached to Zarya. It was just more, what female character can I do? Because I kind of want to bring this thing I know I have into the cosplay world side to it.
Yeah.
But where it stemmed for me, and don't be wrong, I know this isn't going to be, that's exactly what I've been through for anyone else, or not many people at least. But if this does help in any which way, if people just kind of understanding themselves. So it's something I've kind of been interested in a weird way of like, when I was little, I used to wear my sister's clothes quite a lot when she wasn't around, things like that. But then I didn't know why. It was just something you do. Just like how I'd also put on my brother's shoes, and they were about 20 sizes too big for me. And I'd leave the house and walk around in shoes. And the thing is that growing up throughout the 90s, whenever... And this isn't anything to my parents or anything like that. It's not their fault. I was just as bad with it because I was brought up in that generation. It's how things were. They were actually pretty good in comparison to most people.
Yeah. Attitudes to anything not the norm through like 80s, 90s to now. The spectrum, like the like pendulum swings, man.
Yeah. And so, but they would always bring up as like the thing to joke about with me when I was like a teenager and stuff was, do you remember when you used to wear your sister's boots?
Yeah, gotcha.
And it was funny, but it was just the case of, it was only ever my sister's boots that were brought up, never whenever I'd wear my brother's shoes that were, at least my sister's boots were a little bit more towards my side.
And I'm assuming as you get older, you're like, that was more hitting a nerve because you're like thinking...
Well, it was more, so people were giving you the reason why that's laughable is because it's close to gay. And gay is the worst thing you could ever be in the 90s. It was like, Jesus Christ, open up a bag of crisps upside down. Oh, you're a girl. It was just stupid shit like that all the time. Like, no, honest. It's like, what? And it was just the way how things were done then was you stressed about shit like that all the time because it was seen as the worst thing you can be. And the problem is that then since... So always hiding it away from people meant I could never talk about it, which meant I could never figure it out myself on what it is. So then it made it become a thing for me that was hidden that I didn't know how to understand because I didn't get the chance to sit down.
And why would you not if, like you say, growing up in our generation, it's when the knee-jerk reaction is either poking fun or negative.
Yeah,
so you're like...
And then also growing up, as I said, as the youngest of 5, where you're being told what to do, what's right, this and that, come on, get this sort of... Which again, it's not that I'm not trying to blame it on everyone else. It's just one of those things of a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Where
we're from the generation of like, I'm feeling or thinking about this, and the response is,
Shut up.
Fucking clip round the ear, I will solve that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So growing up from that side, it was like the only way this can be perceived is that it must be a gay thing, and then you've got to hide that if it is, because even coming out as just gay was an issue. So not being gay or not knowing if you are or aren't, and then struggling with having to, I'm not even just gay, I'm wearing girls' clothes. Jesus Christ, how do I explain this? So that was one of those things that I struggled with throughout being a teenager. And then when your hormones going everywhere, you're like thinking of it in is it a sexual thing? Is it this? Is it that? Or whatever.
Trying to figure out
and
what's
it's getting lost in all that. But then when you're having to hide it to yourself, and as a teenager, we all know how much we judge ourselves. You're not your best judge of character.
All the other teenagers.
Yes, exactly. And so you're not your best judge of character when you're a teenager. So it's like growing up through that and knowing you've got to hide something, and you're thinking, well, this is why. And then when you then get to, I think I was about 22 when I finally got to the point where I was a bit older, I could do it if I wanted to now. I had money, I had this, I could do whatever I wanted. And it's like, right, but in what ways is it going to come out and show itself? And it felt like it then had to come out in a way of gaining attention for it, because I've never been allowed to have it in a spotlight before or be seen by anyone.
Yeah. So it's almost like an overcorrection. It's
exactly. So whenever I was wearing anything or dressing up in anything like that, it had to be like overly feminine. It was always about like trying to be as most convincing as a female as possible, so that it was seen as attractive by guys.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, then people would be like, well, not that anyone knew at this time still, but it was like when I started to make a point of it to friends to let them know, which I only had to let them know because a girl I was going out with at the time knew about it. And then when we were splitting up, there's nothing to do with that, but when we were splitting up, her whole thing was, if you split up with me, I will tell all your friends and everyone you know about that. So it was like, oh shit, so I've got to beat her to the punch and tell everyone, but I don't even know what I'm telling people.
You're still figuring that out.
But I've got to, because otherwise she's going to tell them that it's from this angle, and that's going to be the worst thing ever. So I then had to tell people as though I was like coming out.
Right, yeah.
And it never sat with me that it was. I was telling my brother, and the way he was like responding wasn't making me feel better, because he was like, right, but this and that. And I was like, why aren't you just being happy for me? It's like, because it's not making much sense. And I was getting defensive about it and upset. And it's like, but he knows me better than everyone else, and he knows I'm not convincing him.
Right? Is it like
exactly? He's like, but you don't seem like you're being yourself talking about something like this about you.
Gotcha.
This feels like you're adding something onto this, or this is coming from someone else. So I was always struggling with, if even my brother doesn't, the person that knows me the most doesn't accept it. And it's like, it's not that he doesn't accept it, he's just not taking what you're telling him as that believable, because you're not being very convincing, because I'm not convincing myself. But I'm trying to do it from, victim of these circumstances, trying to come out about it before this other person can. So I've still got this bad aspect to it of, right, no one understands it, but everyone knows about it now.
Yeah.
But it is still about an attention thing, and it's this and it's that, and it's trying to be seen as attractive. So then when I'm buying things like the silicone boobs, they're always the biggest ones, the overcorrecting, the shortest dresses, the things like that, and always trying to look very girly and stuff. And this is not, it's not really me at all. But then I'm stuck in this thing of, right, well, now I've got two personalities almost, and I'm trying to grow up through
my 20s. If anything, it's more like about like discovery. So you've got to go down that road to be like.
So then it was a case of, right, well, do I keep wearing stuff like this in my bedroom when I'm on my own, but I'm just kind of feeding a bad habit? Do I even know it's a bad habit? Or do I then go and see if I can go out somewhere and people accept me for who I am? And then that's where it's like, well, going to gay bars would be fine. They're friendly enough places. Everyone seems to be lovely when you go there. And I'm going there and these people are being lovely about it. But I'm like, right, so it's only accepted in gay areas. So again, it's being shoved down this area of this is what this is.
Yeah.
And that again started to become a struggle without realising, because it's like, well, maybe it is that I've got like a bit of a gay side to me or something, but then I'm like, but I don't value any men's opinions on how I look until I'm dressed as a girl. And it's like, but I do not have any attraction to a guy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, right, so what is this then? Is this anything to do with that? Is it that you're bi? Is it this? Is it that? Is it that...
Not even us. Not even attracted to us. Get you another drink and we'll find out.
But I mean, we've already said I'm not wearing pants. I don't just do that on any pod. But yeah, so from that point onwards, it was a bit of an awkward one of like, where do I go with this? What do I now have to go and do? Is this just, well, that's what it is? Which I still don't understand. So if anyone asks anything further forwards, I still don't know what to give them.
But cosplay has kind of been, because I've kind of seen, because obviously we're all close, and I've seen you speak about it slowly more openly on your Instagram, and you're like, so that has been more of a healthy outlet to kind of keep discovering sort of like what
to hold the bits and pieces of it that I'm like, right, regardless of trying to figure out what other people think of it, which bits of it don't sit right with me,
and which bits do I like, and
which bits do I like, which bits am I doing because that's what I'm used to doing, and can I live without some of the bits? And that was the thing. It was a case of, well, the only bits of it were wearing it like this to go to these bars to get noticed.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, well, can I live without all of it? And for a while, it felt like I could. And it was a case of like, right, but is this a case of I can live without the whole thing, or is it a case of I can live without the attention and the going to the bars and stuff? And I started to not go on nights out anymore anyway. So if I was to ever do it, it'd be like, got to go on a night out to go and do it. So I'm already like, well, I'm doing something I don't want to do to enjoy. So that already is telling me one thing. So what do I like to do? Well, if I drink or do anything like that now, it's at a con, it's like a day drinking thing or something like that. So I was kind of like, well, why not wear one to a con instead and see how that goes down, where people know me as me? Because bearing in mind, anytime I was going to any of these gay bars, they don't know me as Kiefer either. Yeah. They only know me as this person dressed up as a girl.
Yeah, because I think we were obviously were like, what? And then you're like, okay. Yeah. That's literally because con, especially with people you're friends with, if you're close with kind of thing, and then you don't even have to have the discussion of like, what's this all about? It can just be cosplay, but for you, you're getting the benefit of just being like,
because it's also experimentation or whatever. When you go to a Comic-Con, it's like no one's asking any questions, because it's also like, I'm not Thor, I'm not Geralt.
There's a guy over there dressed as Pikachu.
Exactly. It's cool. And no one's asking them, why are you dressed as Pikachu? Or we're just like, well, so me being dressed as a girl at a con, I don't have to try and, not that I ever really did, because it never felt right, but I don't have to try and put on a voice, I don't have to act more feminine, I can be me still, but in feminine stuff. So picking characters like Junker Queen, that is musclier, She-Hulk, who's musclier but still very glamish and stuff, so I still get to express the sides to it that I like, the femininity of it, and I'm like, right, so well, what is the feminine side that I do enjoy? And I genuinely just think it's one of those things where, you know, no one questions fucking Jimmy Choo for making women's shoes. But he does, and he's the fucking genius at it. He's doing pretty well. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, it just kind of went down that road of, I really like makeup. No one questions me when I'm wearing Geralt makeup. And I spent a lot of time doing that. No one's got an issue with that. But if I do it and it's like, oh, you're a bit too much eyeshadow that looks slightly attractive. Yeah. No, that's wrong. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. And a lot of the time it then comes down to, I started to realise, I was like, the people that had an issue with this are the ones that are struggling with their sexuality. Not me struggling with mine. They're making me struggle with mine because they're like, I know you're a guy and I'm finding you attractive. What does that say about me? It's like, what it says about me is that you've got some hang-ups on worried about what being gay is and that's an issue. Yeah. And a lot of the time I'm like, it doesn't mean you're gay. Yeah. Because you're like, what you're saying is like what you're
the whole thing you were trying to discover is like, is this even tied to sexuality? You're just like, I just like doing this. And This feels good.
It's like I've been told that it was based around sexuality by people that are struggling with their sexuality. So I'm like, well, this is, and then I'm then being expected to, because people are coming to me when I've been dressed up and look very convincing. They're like, oh, how'd you do this? You look at me. I wish I looked like you. And then I'm trying to give them advice. I'm like, but I don't even know why the fuck I'm doing this.
And you're like, as much as you want to be like, oh, I wish to help you with this. I wish to help you with that. This situation is unique to me.
Exactly.
And other people will have other things that are unique to them.
Exactly. It's like our reasons might not coalesce. They might not be the same. My reasons are my own for doing
and this is where it's got to the point where what I've started to kind of try my best to share if anyone's ever asked about it. And I love people asking about it.
I was going to say, if anyone wants to, and you're always
even if they are asking the questions that I used to worry about when I was younger, because I know myself a lot better now. Those questions don't. The problem with those questions, they used to make me question myself. I don't have to question myself now. I've got answers for you now. About me, not for you or anyone else. They might resonate.
But you can use that as a guideline to your own stuff.
Exactly. So, and the bigger thing I would say for anyone to take from any of it is, rather than taking specific answers that I'm saying, going, oh, that's exactly what I must be going through. And this, I do find a lot of people that struggle with figuring out whether they're trans or anything like that can come into this, is that other people are very quick to try and stuff they don't understand, they're very quick to try and want to make sense of it because they're struggling with a lack of control of how other people do or don't see things. So they'll try and put you in a category that makes more sense to them, which is fine. I understand it. It's a safety thing for everyone, but the problem is that they don't realise how much then that can make that person that might not be all there with themselves yet question themselves. So the biggest thing to take, I would say, from it is it's so specific that I can't put it to anyone else's experience. So that should tell you, don't take anyone else's word for it on what your experience should be. Don't let anyone else ever tell you that you're this or you must be that or you might be this. Just don't worry so much about figuring out what it is to make someone else be okay with what you are, and you'll kind of just get there. You won't have to stress as much. It'll be clearer because you won't have other people's conjecture in the way for you to then go, oh, is it that thing that they were saying? I've got to go figure that out. It's like, if I didn't have to worry about anyone else's opinion on it, I at a very young age might have just realised, no, I'm just quite into women's fashion. I might just be designing tops for women now. And just went, no, that's all I'm asked about. But because I never got that chance or any of that, I pushed all that to the side and thought it was something else to keep it hidden. And now it's come out in other things. All these other questions, it's like, I'll be honest, I do like wearing makeup. I think it's cool. I've got there's nothing attached to it. And it's been, at first it felt like I was losing a part of myself by taking so much that was attached to it and pushing it away and going like, oh, that's not a part of it anymore. Well, what's the point? It's like, well, what is the point? It's like, I do still enjoy it. It's like, well, just enjoy those bits.
You like you enjoy cosplay.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So it's kind of got to a point where it's more, I'm just not bothered whether it's male or female or not or whatever. I just enjoy expressing certain looks, and there are certain looks that do a little spark for me, and there are some that don't. Just like how there are some characters from some films or games that, as we were saying before, love Batman, love Captain America, never been a big fan of Superman. And a lot of people go, why aren't you a fan of Superman? He wears blue as well. There's Captain America, he's got powers like so-and-so. You like Goku. He's basically the same. I'm like, but he's got this and there's bits and pieces of that. And I'm not saying you now have to hate Superman because you like it. It's like, you don't have to hate the other thing because you don't understand it or it's not your thing. And you don't have to then go, oh, well, if I don't hate it, and as you were saying before, well, these really good comics, I might read them and go, it's still not really my thing, and just not be bothered. It's like, that's fine too. You don't have to hate on anyone's stuff. You don't have to change your opinion on it. Just enjoy the ones that you've got and express why you like them. And someone might go, you know what? I'm not that asked about Superman, but I like hearing you talk about Superman. that'll be good enough for me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if someone's genuinely passionate about something and they're not bullshitting or not trying to make up a rule for themselves or something, then I think you'll just naturally know when someone's happy with what they're doing.
Yeah. And like you said, it's like it's just being explorative with the right people in the right community who you know have a healthy approach to everything in life. Whatever. You know, people aren't going to shut you down or tell you not to be this or not to be that or that's wrong. Just be open and kind in a community where you can do so. That's what cosplay is all about, really.
Because that's the thing I had a bit of an issue with. And again, I can't moan at anyone because it's just one of those things. But at first, I remember when I first started to talk about it and I first done She-Hulk and things like that, and I started to talk about the stuff I used to do, dressing up. And everyone was trying to be lovely, and I can't not appreciate them for it. But there was the side of everyone doing like, no, you do whatever you want to do and this and that. And I was like, I do understand the loveliness to this and what you're trying to say. The only thing is that I felt again like people weren't listening to me from the opposite end of the spectrum now.
Because they're just going,
I'm following my whims with it, and it's not good. It's not being healthy for me. I'm going for attention from people.
Yeah.
And it screwed up some relationships. It screwed up friendships and things like that. It screwed up myself, how I was seeing myself and how I was acting. I was clearly doing it for things that aren't me. And
whereas
people
if
were
you've
like,
open
yeah,
with
you go do you, it's fine. I'm like, no, you're not listening. I know it's not fine with me. I'm not saying it's not fine for anyone. I'm just like, I know this isn't sitting right with me.
Yeah.
And people are still going, no, you do you. And I'm like, well, this is the same as people saying, don't do you. Leave it. It's like it's either one end of the spectrum or the complete opposite end. It's like both.
Whereas if you'd have had a little bit of a guiding hand, being questioning, like, why? Like,
and let me talk about it, and let me figure it out.
That's life right there.
Exactly. And this is the thing, and this is where it's a case of being understanding is very different from saying what you think is or isn't right. And I think that's a lot of the things with like left wing and right wing and stuff and all that. Yeah, it's very, if you're right wing, you're wrong. If you're on the the opposite side and you're left wing or right wing, people think you're a fucking this and that, and what it's like. Sometimes that's not quite the case, and I do genuinely think 90% of the human race is in the middle. It's just we're being
things are far more grey than they're black and white.
And it's like people are saying pick a side or get off my this and that. I don't want to follow. If I unfollow anyone for political views, it's not because you like Donald Trump and I don't. It's more the way how you're being about whether it's Donald Trump or Biden or whatever you believe. Your attitude towards it is so, I will not listen to anything you have to say because it's different than mine. I'm like, then there's no helping you.
Yeah, it's just sit down and be able to have a conversation about anything.
Or at least be able to operate in a room with people who have different beliefs than you.
Yes, because this is the funniest side of Comic-Con. I'm like, every single person there is literally wearing a costume. As we said before, you'll go there and you'll see 1 million people in anime costumes of stuff you have never seen, stuff you do not like, whatever. Do you then go, we're avoiding all of them?
Kill them.
Exactly. Oh, they're not our people. It's like, no, we're all in the same building, remember, because we are all weirdos that like, we've got something in common, remember?
Yeah.
That we all like different stuff.
Yeah, Kevin Smith had an amazing bit about that where he's like, you go to a con and you walk in and there's a load of people dressed in Star Trek cosplays and they're all standing there, and then over there's a big group and all the Star Trek people all get together and they go, look at all those fucking idiots over there, and they're all dressed as stormtroopers. Yeah. It's just like
exactly.
It's groups and all that sort of stuff. It's just like,
but then you both walk out the Comic-Con doors and the person across the road goes, look at all them knobheads over there in fucking, Battlestar Galactica costumes. And you're like, oh, that's not what any of us are from. And it's like, right, it doesn't matter. It's not about that. You can just keep on taking away one thing removed and everyone's got a difference of everyone. All that tells you is everyone is different.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
From a group where we're supposed to be praising individuality, I feel like it's so...
We've got more in common than we have apart.
Exactly. Yeah. And that goes for everything. That's not...
the one thing in life.
Is, I felt like Comic-Cons, for me, were a good place where we've recognised that and we've gone, and it's time to do your bit. Come in here.
Yeah.
We're all wearing anime stuff. I'm dressed as Hagrid. cool, come on in.
Absolutely.
It's fine. Doesn't matter what you're into. We all love that you're into something.
Yeah,
That's
we love
the
you're
main
passionate
thing.
about it to dress up and come here, man.
Exactly.
We like that you've put in the thing to do that.
Don't be wrong, if you're walking around in a swastika outfit and stuff.
Yeah, don't bring those.
That's not cool.
Don't bring those yet.
No.
You know, there are limits.
Yeah.
But again,
you can leave your clan hood deep in the fucking grandfather's basement. Don't ever fucking get that out.
But again, before we just punch someone, go and say, why are you wearing that?
Yeah.
Then find out. They might go, shit, I didn't even realise.
Yeah. I thought I was
they
Red
did
Skull.
what?
Yeah. I thought I was Red Skull. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that is
This is
literally...
my military Charlie Chaplin.
I think that's literally like a fantastic place to kind of like just end things on.
Yeah.
It's just like, just this community, just be positive, be kind. Look at all this like stuff we're doing. We're all big kids really, but kids we're all just like crazy and emotional, and you have knee-jerk reactions to things all the time. It's just like, do what you want. You're not hurting anyone. That's the best thing. You know,
I will
You
say
don't,
that going to Comic-Cons and things, because it's almost coming up 10 years now for me. I made Mad Max in 2016. So, yeah, it's not far off 10 years. So for me, all of the work I've done on changing myself, figuring myself out and everything, it wouldn't have happened
without
if I hadn't have done all this, and the people I've met and people like yourselves and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, with all of this and the people I've seen along the way struggle and better themselves. It's like I would have struggled without any of this to help me through.
Yeah.
So this is why I think.
Well,
it's
from
such
me
a
and
good
Tim,
thing.
you're welcome.
Oh yeah, the Witcher Netflix show is shit because it doesn't follow the books at all.
What's that last minute?
The important things for people to know. Yeah.
Little
Do
note,
you like Geralt from the books? Do you like it from the games? The Witcher show's nothing like this.
And
past season
anyone
2.
that sits there and says they love The Witcher and that's why they like the show, right? Henry Cavill loves it more than you, I promise you, and he left because he thought it was
that's what I was
shit.
saying. We were talking
remember
about this the other day.
He wasn't fired. He left because they weren't following the writing from the book.
Because basically,
every time he suggested anything from the books, they were like, nah. So
people don't want to see this.
exactly.
Yeah.
But we do. So as soon as Henry Cavill's finished with his Warhammer 40k
Voltron?
series.
Voltron he's doing next, I think.
Highlander.
I love that man.
But even still, if he does successful with those, then I'm like, please, it'll have been long enough then that we'll have left The Witcher and hopefully Netflix will go, yeah, we'll sell it because someone else is going to do a better job. And Henry Cavill will come and go, I'll take that. Cheers. And then he can do it himself. Yeah. That's what I want.
And it would be fantastic.
Yes.
It would be great if he played Vesemir in the second time round and got someone to play Geralt. Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
I think we've done it all.
I think we absolutely
we've
have.
smashed it. Dude, thank you so much for coming on and just doing what we always do, which is just ramble about the good things.
No, thank you guys. I think it's good to have a podcast where you can chat about this sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, that's what this is all about for us. It's just an extension of a hobby that we love, because the main thing about the hobby we love is all the people that we meet and talk to who are just insanely talented.
Absolutely.
And yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I don't even remember how we end these things.
Well, we end these things by saying you can find us at The Suit Up Show online, at The Suit Up Show, and on Twitter.
And some other stuff. I think there's an Instagram.
There's an Instagram which is at The Suit Up.
There is a website, www.suitupshow.com, and on Instagram at The Suit Up Show, and you can find Kiefer.
Oh yeah, usually hiding around in bushes. You can find me on Instagram mainly as Multiplejacks.
That's it. Awesome. Yeah, and listen to the show on Spotify, watch on YouTube, all that stuff. It's good to be back.
It is good to be back.
Thank you for joining us and being back with us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, we better go and put our pants on.
I'm just staying up.
No, that...